All right, noting a quorum of councilors here present, we'll call the City Council meeting to order. It is Monday, June 16th at 6 p.m. And the first item on our agenda is the agenda. Councilor McKnight, could I ask you for a motion on our agenda as reflected on Civic Clerk?
Yes, I move to amend the agenda as follows. Remove from the consent agenda item 6.12 New North End Sidewalk Scoping Study Approval per DPW Director Spencer.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Singh. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously, so we have our amended agenda in place. The second item on our agenda is an executive session. There's one item regarding a municipal contract update that may be subject to executive session. As is our practice, I would turn to the City Attorney's Office to offer some factual background before the motions on this item.
Thank you. The open meeting law statute allows for executive session to discuss matters that would place the city at a substantial disadvantage if there was premature general public knowledge of the information. So this is a discussion of a municipal contract, and it would contract negotiation, and it would place the city at a substantial disadvantage for the public to have premature knowledge of the matter.
Thank you, City Attorney Brown. Councilor McKnight, could I turn to you? There's a two-part motion for a motion on the first item.
Yes, thank you. I move that, for the first part, I move that the council find that premature general public knowledge of municipal contract negotiations would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And Councilor McKnight, could I turn to you for a motion on item 2?
Yes, based upon that finding, I move that the council go into executive session to receive confidential attorney-client communications 1 VSA 313A1A regarding contracts, including representatives from the Mayor's Office, City Attorney's Office, Department of Public Works, and CEDO.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. So the council is now in executive session. Councilor Grant, I see you online. If not already, I'll make sure that we get a Zoom link out to you and others. We have public forum set for a time certain of 6:30 p.m., and so we will be back before then. Thank you for your patience. All right, I very much appreciate folks' patience here. Are we good on Town Meeting TV? Okay, thank you very much. So appreciate folks' patience here in City Hall as well as online. The council's executive session ran a bit over. The next item on our agenda, though, is public forum, which we had set for a time certain of 6:30. We will go ahead now and open public forum at 6:44 p.m. As we approach public forum here, generally speaking, our rules are such that we would first hear from Burlington residents here in City Hall, then turn to Burlington residents online. We would then come back here to City Hall for non-Burlington residents or individuals that are representing Burlington organizations or property owners, and then follow that same practice online. I will note that this evening we are honored to be joined by State Treasurer Mike Pichak, who I know has time sensitivity around his official obligations. And so even though Treasurer Pichak is a non-Burlington resident who has signed up for public forum here, absent objection, we will suspend our rules to hear from Treasurer Pichak first and then turn to the rest of Burlington residents. When I call your name, we'll ask you to please come forward here to the table. Ensure that the green light on the microphone is illuminated. If you're online, we will allow you to speak here on Zoom. Everyone will have 2 minutes, whether here in person or online. We welcome a diversity of opinions on public issues. We ask, however, that individuals, when providing comment, please refrain from any remarks that are personalized or individual attacks. It's important that City Hall remain a safe place for those who serve, those in attendance, and those watching online. We will not tolerate any attacks that reference any individual's protected characteristics. We also ask that when individuals are providing public comment to please refrain from raising their voice or using obscenities or other vulgar language. If at any point in time I interrupt a speaker, it will be to ask that they please proceed in accordance with these rules. If it continues in violation of these rules, I reserve the right to end public comment at that point in time. So with that, as mentioned, absent objection, I will consider our rules suspended to hear from Treasurer Mike Pichak first, and then we will turn back to our regular order in hearing from Amy Cudney, Burlington resident. Thank you very much for being here, Treasurer Pichak.
Mr. Chair, and I used to be a Burlington resident, so I will at least take that honor. I wanted to be here tonight to talk about the work that I know the City Council has underway to try to extend a hand of friendship toward our neighbors to the north. As you probably are well aware, tourism is a critical part of the Vermont economy, and Canadian tourism represents a really important component of that. And the Canadian tourism is disproportionately felt across Vermont. There are places like Burlington and Church Street that have a disproportionate amount of tourism compared to a place like I grew up in Brattleboro in the southern part of the state. 750,000 annual visits from Canadian tourists that come into Vermont every year, spending over $150 million. So it has a really significant impact on our economy. And again, those impacts are outsized, felt in places like Burlington. We know based on data that tourism is down, traffic is down at the border. Nationally, this is a phenomenon, down 30, 40%. Similar for Vermont. The tourism, the passenger border crossings are down 30, 40% over the months of April and May, and also in March compared to last year. So I think it's really important for us to find ways in Vermont to differentiate ourselves from the federal government, from the Trump administration, and say that we are here with open arms. We want to maintain our relationships, our friendships, our economic ties to Canada. We want to encourage Canadians to continue to visit Vermont, and we have to find different ways to do that. There are organizations that are offering at par opportunities so Canadians can come and spend dollars in the United States at par. Peak, the Brewers Fest are working on this. The mayor and I went up to Montreal to send a message of friendship. We didn't pick this fight, but we get to pick our friends, and we want to pick Canada. And similarly, we wrote an op-ed from our office into the Canadian marketplace recently. So I encourage you to pass the resolution that you're considering relating to Church Street, and really appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you, Treasurer Pichak.
Thank you.
And thanks for keeping it to 2 minutes. Sets a good example. So our next speaker is Amy Cudney, who will be followed by Kevin Lewis.
Hello, Mayor, City Councilors. My name's Amy Cudney. I've been a resident of Ward 2 for 22 years. I'm here this evening to express gratitude on behalf of the Burlington Bethlehem Arad Sister City program. We recently received your letter acknowledging that the funding you could offer this year was less than in years past. Nevertheless, we were buoyed by your willingness to continue your support even in these increasingly challenging financial times. Since the time this Sister City organization was founded in 1991, the City of Burlington has demonstrated its commitment to our shared belief that citizens can help bring peace by working with each other across their differences. Just as all the city's departments are being tasked with a close examination of and accounting of their expenditures, so too we thought should we. Over the course of this past year, we have utilized our $2,000 budget allotment from you to do the following. We contributed to the Bethlehem Arab Society for Rehabilitation for a holiday party for children with disabilities and their families. We contributed to the Caritas Baby Hospital in Bethlehem. We contributed to scholarships for students at Terra Sancta School for Girls in Bethlehem. Our original $800 contribution amounted to a scholarship for one student, but was further bolstered by a grant we secured from the Caroline Fund and by our collaboration with St. Michael's College clergy and congregation to raise additional funds for these scholarships. By leveraging the monies the city provided, we were able to gather $11,547 to support these girls' education. We also sponsored the film No Other Land at the Vermont International Film Festival. Like our Sister City program, this film was a Palestinian-Israeli collaboration, showing the destruction of the occupied West Bank by Israeli soldiers, while also highlighting the alliance which develops between Palestinian activist Basel
Thank
and
you.
Israeli journalist Yuval.
Sorry, if you
Because
could please
this-
wrap up. You've hit your 2-minute mark, so if you could please just with a final sentence here, wrap up.
So, because this was considered too controversial a topic by most movie distributors, the Vermont screening of this film was the first in the United States. Subsequently, No Other Land received an Oscar for the Best Documentary. Point of pride, Burlington.
Thank you.
Thank you for supporting our sister cities.
Thank you.
Shalom, salam.
Thank you. And if you have a longer written comment, we would welcome your forwarding it to the council. Thank you. Our next speaker is Kevin Lewis, who will be followed by Todd DeLuca.
Hello, my name's Kevin Lewis. I am hoping to be put onto the board for registration of voters. I applied within the specified time that was allowed, or by the deadline. I came to the meeting on Tuesday. I was not asked to speak or to interview. So I am putting forward that I would like to be part of the BRV to further serve my community. A little about myself, I'm the site director for the after-school program over at Sustainability Academy. I also volunteer my time in other ways in the community as well, and hoping to do so for the city of Burlington also. If I would like also some clarification as to why my application was originally rejected. And I hope that my experience with the application process is not something that's done in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Todd DeLuca, who will be followed by Allison Seeger.
Hi, Mayor, City Councilors, Mr. President. I'm Todd DeLuca from Burlington. 2 weeks ago on Sunday night around 10 p.m., I was recording an incident on South Winooski Avenue. While recording, I was attacked with a knife by a man who objected to me exercising my First Amendment rights. In the attack, I was hit twice and slashed at. My phone was stolen and destroyed. 2 of my fingers were broken. My tires were slashed. And I was left terrorized to walk home through dark, empty streets. It feels like public safety is getting worse this year again. I know all of you take our safety very seriously and are working hard to make downtown safe again. And I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. Good night.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Allison Seeger, who will be followed by Andrea Vietz.
Hi, my name is Alison Seeger. I've lived in Burlington since 1996. I live in the Five Sisters. So about 3 weeks ago, I was at Burlington Airport, about to catch a flight to Newark. My friend Kaya Morris was at the airport at the same time, about to take a flight to Chicago. I got on the plane and I was scrolling, and my Instagram account and Kaya mentioned that 7 people on the Chicago lounge on United were there being detained by ICE without due process. And she was really, really concerned about that. And it's been with me ever since. I wonder what I would have done had my Delta flight had 7 people being detained by ICE in the lounge there. And it's been bothering me so much. And I just think about the fact that Burlington is a sanctuary city. that Burlington controls Burlington Airport, if I understand that correctly. And I wonder what you guys are doing about that. I wonder what you guys are doing knowing that people are actually at our airport, which is run by people in Burlington, paid for by Burlington. It's a sanctuary city, and people are being detained in the lounges at our airport by ICE without due process. How can we be a sanctuary city and that is actually happening? I don't know if this matter has been brought up before. It really, really upsets me, and I had to come here today to ask you guys to really think and consider, is that what we want to be doing at our airport? Surely we have some responsibility to people who pass through that airport that that is not happening. So please don't just think, oh, she's just saying something tonight and just leave it. I really like you to really think about this, investigate it, and really decide if that's how you want our airport to be used moving forward from today. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Our next speaker is Andrea Vietz, who will be followed by Sasha Mayo.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Vietz. I'm the director at the Heineberg Community Senior Center in the New North End. And I want to say a few things about services for older adults in Burlington. First, if you don't know this, there are more city residents 65 and older than there are 18 and under. We provide a great deal of services for our children and youth, which I think is incredibly important. And we don't provide much for our older residents, and that is also important. If we're lucky, we're all going to get old. And I'd like you to think about what you'd like for yourself, for your parents, for your aunts and uncles and community members, so that they feel valued and connected as they age in place in Burlington. Some of the issues that I'm concerned about with the closing of CORE are transportation for the participants at that program, which they have not been having to pay for previously, and now in order to access services at the Heineberg or anywhere else, they're going to have to pay for their own transportation costs. Food access, I'd like to see us do a better job around the city of making fresh produce, gleaned produce from the Intervale available to residents. I'd like to see us do some pop-up foot clinics. Foot care is incredibly important for people to be healthy and well and remain active. I also just finally would like to say that time is flying by, and I know there are a lot of pressing issues, but it is really time to convene a work group to talk about how we're going to better serve the older adults in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sasha Mayo, who will be followed by Alan Walker-Hodgkin.
Hey, y'all, I'm still Sasha.
Can you make sure the microphone's on? Sorry.
Still with the Proud Girls. And I think this idea of changing the name to Cannabis Street is be absolutely wonderful. I think that would really cheer everybody up in town. I hear that we're all supposed to move our meal by like a month from now. Yeah, that'll be hilarious trying to make us move. We'll see what happens with that. I don't think you all know what organization you think you're dealing with. Anyway, I still only recognize 2 people who seem to have ever come to our meal. Still haven't seen anybody from that side of the table, and I keep telling y'all, you all are more than welcome. Would you please come down and just say hi? You know, it's a lot more mellow, I've noticed, during the meals when the police aren't there. I mean, they're very nice. I go talk to them every time. It's been nicer and nicer. We have a really nice time. We have a wonderful outdoor meeting. We don't want to be put inside. The people who come there come because they always know it's there. It's there every day, and they feel safer there because they're not confined. They don't want to go to the park. They don't feel safe there. They feel safer there than any other place. And if you all try to make us move, well, first of all, I shall not be moved, but I'll just start going to there and doing it myself. It's a public space. We're allowed to do what we're doing. I know the laws. I've done this in many cities, and I've been doing it for almost 40 years. You can't blame us for what's happening in town. You got to blame society. And as far as criminal activity, who's the president right now? Okay? Who's the president right now? You're picking on them for what they're doing?
Thank you. Next speaker is Alan Walker Hodkin, and then our last Burlington resident here in City Hall will be Ann Tewksbury Fry.
Hello, my name is Alan Walker Hodkin from the Cafe Hot in downtown Burlington. In late November of 2024, I was told that my block on Main Street would be closed for 40 days. Then the closure would caterpillar east, meaning each block would be closed for 5 weeks as infrastructure was updated. Today marks day 195 that my block on Main Street has been closed. This is not a judgment or critique of SDI or the DPW. It is just a picture of how things are going. Recently, I met with Councilmember Bergman and DPW leadership to discuss options to relieve the business community during this project. And I speak for the downtown business community when I say that we need a break and we need relief. We need space to breathe so we can catch up after pandemic closures a few years ago and now this. When we were told 40 days, I believed and trusted in the system and process for this project. And I took actions then that I never would have taken now, 195 days later. I say all of this, even though it has been 195 days, that I still have trust. I have trust that you have seen the impact it is having on our community, and I trust that you will give the community the open roads we need so we can catch up after the last 195 days. We all want this project to be completed. The reality is, it isn't going as planned, and a pause won't change the completion, only the means to achieve it. We need a pause so the project can finish as intended, with the businesses and downtown community intact. In mid-July, the first level of asphalt will be laid, and it will be around day 225 of this Main Street closure. We depend on you for help. Please give us relief. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last Burlington resident here in City Hall is Ann Tewksbury Fry. We will then turn to Burlington residents online, and I need to look up the list here. It'll be Tito Byrne first.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ann Tewksbury Fry. I'm a longtime resident of Burlington, and I am president of a local nonprofit called JUMP, which you may be, I hope, familiar with, Joint Urban Ministry Project, and we serve the neediest in Burlington and Chittenden County. About a week or two ago, we wrote a letter to the mayor, and I hope that it's all right with you if I share some of the documentation that's in it. First, thank you from the JUMP Board of Directors who have benefited from your $1,500 that you give us each year. It's helped us to meet the increasing needs that we are seeing our neighbors struggle with. While we understand the challenges being faced by Burlington, we are disappointed that JUMP will not receive any funding this year. Burlington is where our drop-in center is located and where most of the people that we provide services to are located. In 2024, JUMP provided 1,786 individuals from Burlington $56,000 in assistance, including $41,000 in food vouchers for them to select their own healthy food, $7,000 in utility vouchers to keep their power on, laundry vouchers, bus passes, and gasoline vouchers. We are the only organization in the city that provides transportation for its neediest. And at this time, as you know, when you have so many people talking about the needs of the homeless and folks facing challenges on Church Street, they come to our doors, which is located at 38 South Winooski Avenue. In addition to offering them those services, when they come, we do something else, and that is there's always a cup of coffee, breakfast, and a friendly face there. Those folks that we often turn our eye away from on Church Street are the folks that we serve the most. So I ask if you would reconsider and help us with this venture of adding more money from the city to JUMP. I have a document that I'd be willing to pass out to share with you.
Sure. If you have copies, feel free to bring them to the table, and they can be passed around. Okay. Yeah, if you could just hand them to, thank you, Catherine, and thank you very much for being here. We will then turn to Burlington residents online. As mentioned, the first Burlington resident we had signed up online was Tito Byrne. Tito, I don't see you online under your name. If you're on Zoom under a different name, if you could please use the raise hand function. If Tito is not here, the next Burlington resident that we have signed up online is Jackie Lawler. And Jackie, I also do not see anyone by that name online either. If you're here under a different name, please use the raise hand function. If neither Tito nor Jackie are here, then the next Burlington resident we have signed up is Monica Ivankic. And Monica, I do see you online and do not see either Tito or Jackie raising their hands. So if we could please promote Monica. And Monica, if you could just give me one moment here to put our timer up on screen. Great. You should now be able to go ahead and unmute yourself. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, and I will also mention that after Monica, we'll be turning to Sharon Busher as our last Burlington resident online. Please go ahead, Monica.
Okay, thank you for the 2 minutes. Thank you, City Council and Mayor, for all the great work you do for our city. And you're at a difficult time here with having to balance the budget. And I know balancing the budget is the responsible thing to do, and I'm not sure why that wasn't done under the previous mayor's administration for 12 years. But I disagree with getting rid of citywide recycling. I think that's an irresponsible decision. This program has existed for well over 30 years, and I don't know if it's been 2 years since we just got the toters that every resident has here in town. That makes the recycling more efficient and less of it is on the street. So if we get rid of DPW-run recycling in our city, what is going to happen to the recycled materials? I kind of see this as like the rich versus the poor. The rich will pay for a service and the poor will get stuck with their recycling, which will end up on our streets, littering our city. And it'll also end up in the trash. And I think most Vermonters know that we only have one landfill in Vermont, and it's in Coventry. So, you know, at a day and age where we should be encouraging folks to recycle, we are thinking about getting rid of city-run recycling, which I think is a little bit ridiculous. Just 2 years ago, we were floating the idea of city pickup of trash, and I believe that's the direction our city should be going. I know we need to cut things. Can you consider cutting sidewalk plowing in the winter or planting the big flower bins with, you know, watering those plants? I just wanted to say, I used to live in Madison, Wisconsin, and in there, both trash and recycling were city ran, and they also didn't do any sidewalk plowing.
Thank you.
And citizens were responsible to do that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. If Tito Byrne or Jackie Lawler are online, if you could please use the raise hand function on Zoom. I do not see you under your name. We will otherwise turn to Sharon Busher, and then if they are not online, we'll return here to City Hall with Jason Leventhal. Sharon, you should be able to now unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, President Travers and City Council and Mayor. I am speaking about impact fees. I've spoken before about them, but I know you're about to act on them tonight. And I am still concerned about what is proposed in the administrative rules. I feel that it has not been a level playing field. You've had RSG working with transportation. They know transportation inside out, our city transportation inside out. You have Raftels working with water and wastewater. They've done reclassification and know that department really well. They've come forward with proposals, and I applaud them, but it's sort of like they're the lobbyists for those two areas. The other city departments were left without that type of lobbying or representation. And so for me, that was the first thing that was problematic. The second piece of the problem is that the ordinance got a lot of attention, but the actual administrative rules were only presented during work sessions. It never went to a committee of the council. And I really feel that that should have been evaluated carefully because Parks and Rec, Fire, all the departments that are now being left out. And so my request is that this get reevaluated sooner than 5 years so that you would be able to look at whether or not you need to impose impact fees on other departments. I feel that that would make it better for you and better for the city to determine whether or not what you have proposed is actually the right impact fees for the right departments. So thank you so much for your time, and I regret that you're going to act on this tonight. I don't think it's ready for prime time.
Again, I will ask if Burlington residents Tito Byrne or Jackie Lawler are online. If yes, please use the raise hand function. All right, so then we will return here in person to Jason Leventhal, who will be followed by Kelly Devine.
Hi, I own a business right here on Main Street, and I just want to talk about the construction project for a minute. It's a huge project, and I give you guys a lot of respect for taking it on. I think it's been many generations before anyone's ripped up Main Street, so it's not surprising it's taking a while. I think what's worked really well, and I've seen up and down the street for most of these streets, is, you close off the street, you dig a hole, you fix whatever you're working on, you fill it back in, and you open the street and the cars pass through. And it's happened over and over, and sometimes it happens many times in just one spot. And I think it's worked really well. 80% or more of the streets work that way. And those businesses, although it's tough, are getting through it. I'm one of them. But there's this one spot on Main Street in front of Nectar's, one business that's already closed. And he spoke today, and I know he's going through some challenging financial times. And that one section just doesn't operate the same way. Instead, for 8 months, there's been piles of gravel, piles of dirt. Right now, there's about 8 huge machines out there. So I know cars can drive on it because there's been bulldozers and steamrollers and piles of steel and equipment sitting there for literally 8 months. This is the only section that's that way. It's the only section that's flat. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's convenience, but there is a storage area that is supposed to be used for that. I drive down that street every day and I look and I say, wow, they're not working on that section. Day after day, week after week. Yet it's closed. I think this is a problem that Vermonters can just roll up their sleeves and say, let's take a look. Why is this the only section not closed? And open it up.
Thank you. Our last speaker here in City Hall is Kelly Devine, and then we have one additional speaker online in Karen Sita.
Hi, my name is Kelly Devine. I'm the director of the Burlington Business Association. I want to use my 2 minutes to touch on a couple of issues. One, I just want to say that, I've heard and read a little bit about this idea with Canada Street. I agree with what the Treasurer Pichek said, that the Canadian visitors are a very important part of our market. The last time we did a market study was as long ago as 2011, but even at that point, statistics showed of the roughly 3 million visitors that we got in Burlington at that time, over the year, about 15% of them were Canadian, and there was a very heavy concentration of those visitors July and August, because those are their vacation months. We also get a lot of Canadian visitors typically by boat. They're a big part of what helps keep our waterfront and harbor going in the summer. So anything we can do to show that we're supportive and taking a different tack than what we're hearing nationally, I think could be helpful. It can't hurt. The other thing, too, is I just want to thank the council administration as well as Director Spencer for trying to do some work on the Main Street piece. This has been a painful project for downtown. It's been extremely painful for the businesses that front on it, but it also has been painful for a lot of other businesses because people now have the perception that you can't get around. You know, every day I come into town, I'm like, wait, which direction am I supposed to go today? And for visitors, it's just been really painful to have sometimes multiple main points of entry closed at once during the summer season, which is so important. The third thing I just want to mention, I understand that there's a proposal to increase impact fees. I know that the council also is going to be looking at gross receipts. I didn't get a chance to see the memo that was just released about some new changes, but I just want to caution the council against any kind of taxes based on economic activity, because we just don't have any guarantee that economic activity is going to be what we've expected in the past. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Our last speaker in public forum is online in Karen Sita. If we could please promote Karen, and then Karen, if you could just hold on one moment, I'll get the timer back up on screen. All right, you should be able to go ahead and unmute yourself.
All right. I'm here to talk about the Canada. I just feel like my life is a movie. It's crazy because I went to the federal courthouse today and I crossed the street and then boom, the senator is there with his wife because, she doesn't play with him. And I was talking to the white senator's wife about diamonds, obviously. And then I was like, Senator, bring good men back to Burlington. And, we went back to talking about Tiffany's and diamonds and all that. But, I've been talking to the city about what, how we are looking on the public stage. And people don't want to listen to me because I talk about how, Burlington used to be that spot. If you think the Canadians are coming to Burlington just for some water and some Ben & Jerry ice cream, you are crazy. They used to come here because we had stunners. And they don't understand that. They don't understand economic value that comes with beauty. I'm trying to teach them. It's a lot of work. I'm tired. That's why I was spending the day at the waterfront. I was like, what a beautiful city, watching the well-fit men in their 40s cleaning their boats. It just relaxes the mind. And I was just like, what a beautiful city. I've been telling them, let's upgrade. I was trying to sing the Beyonce song. I was like, let us upgrade as people. The Canadians, they're our friends, but they're our friends that don't really tell other people that they're our friends. And we need to become that girl where they have to be like, oh yeah, we're friends with Vermont. Especially Burlington, Queen City. I'm all for Queen Sisters, I'm all about that royalty life. So this is the same message I've been trying to tell people for a while, the city for a while, this administration, that administration. I'm talking to the women a lot, and women come for me because they know why. So, maybe because it's corn-fed, booty is corn-fed, so I don't know what's their problem. But I've been saying this, and I hope that the marketing campaign, I am center stage helping, because I've been saying this for a long time, because our Canadian friends are our friends, but they don't want to really tell the world. And why not? If we're that girl, then you'll tell everybody, because we have embarrassments, such as Becca and others. But, we have embarrassments. We don't need to be embarrassed anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now go ahead and close public forum at 7:19 p.m. That now takes us to the next item on our agenda, which is Mayor General City Affairs. I will note, I know that we have a number of folks here in attendance and tuning in for our board and commission appointments. Just to sort of lay out the next steps here, we will turn to Mayor and then City Council General City Affairs. Then our consent agenda will take a brief moment. Then we will turn to the City Council appointments. And then, Mayor, I think the plan at that point would be to then recess the City Council meeting to turn to the City Council with Mayor presiding for those appointments. But Mayor, the next item is yours, so the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So tonight I would like to begin with my updates with calling folks' attention to a memo I posted under Mayor Update on Civic Clerk. It's actually about boards and commissions and our appointment process. I comment in this memo about a couple of important points that I think we can do better in terms of our process. I served on City Council about 15 years ago, and some of the development of how a slate gets proposed are similar, but it's evolved in different ways, and I think it's rightly so that we look at this process to make sure we're getting the outcome that we really need here in Burlington, which ultimately means that we have more representation amongst our boards and commissions and really look to remove barriers that exist, especially ones that I have seen as a woman in elected office, as an LGBTQ plus person as well, because a lot of the barriers that I've seen over the years come when we lean a little too heavily on the power of incumbency and when we also use informal practices. So I am just calling this out because I think it's very important that we do better to make sure we have proportional representation on all of our boards and commissions, because that builds a more inclusive community. It also is often a pathway for folks to run for higher office, to serve in this body and other bodies, and I just want to make sure we're doing our part here. As the mayor, I have a chartered position as the presiding officer for mayor and city council, mayor presiding city council meetings for some of these appointed positions. And I commit to making sure that we formalize that process so it's known that people have a fair opportunity when they're not incumbents to be able to be considered in a more robust and transparent way, because I think that makes for better representation on these boards and commissions. So I know we can do that together, and for the positions the council is sole appointees of, I hope that you will join me in that effort as we continue to move the city into a more inclusive place. I also want to provide a couple updates related to REIB. I want to first start with just making sure the community knows that Burlington will be celebrating Juneteenth this Saturday, June 21st, from 2 to 10 p.m. right here downtown at the Church Street Marketplace in City Hall Park behind City Hall. And we have a number of really great pieces of programming that will be taking place, including free meals for folks from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., a lot of great programming for young people. We have our continued awards ceremony where we'll be honoring many folks who rightfully have been able to be recognized for their leadership and service to advancing equity and strengthening Burlington as a community. This includes a youth award as well as a sustainability award, a community impact award, an innovator award, and a legacy award. Lots of great folks to be able to be lift up and to come celebrate and learn about. We also have a few things in the park and around downtown. There's a lot to be happening between, again, the hours of 2 and 10 p.m. on this Saturday, June 21st. I also want to thank a couple councilors who've begun some work with myself and Interim Director Barry on starting to draft chartered language for REIB for your consideration in the coming weeks. It's been an important piece from the beginning days of REIB to make sure that we can put forward permanency for this incredibly important office. And we're starting to work on how to make sure that that work continues regardless of who's mayor or on city council, because the work of equity and inclusion is critical now and far into the future. So again, starting it with a few councilors and Interim Director Barry, but we'll be bringing that hopefully in the July meeting for council for your consideration, and then perhaps sending it to the REIB committee to do more public deliberations on that. Also to REIB, we closed the posting of the REIB director position. We had it up for about a month. Posting is now closed. We're moving to interviewing, the interviewing step of this. We had a very robust applicant pool, which I'm very pleased with, and that we're having a hiring committee. We're following a similar process to our planning director process. So a member of city council, members of the community will be involved in that to help advise which applicants should be advanced to my desk for consideration. So more on that soon. In terms of the community safety priority that I have, I just want to highlight a couple things here. On Wednesday of this week, June 18th, we'll be having my monthly press briefing on community safety. This one is a particularly important one, and Town Meeting TV airs the entire thing. And because we'll be talking about some very tangible outgrowths of work we've been hard at work with in my administration for the last several months, including Chief Burke will be presenting on his new recruitment plan for the BPD, which I think he did present to the Police Commission. He'll be giving that briefing to the press on Wednesday, as well as the deployment
a plan for this summer, and our pre-charge coordination work and bringing that back online in a way that's partnering with our CJC to make sure the accountability system is actually functioning. A second big update will come from our Community Justice Center and our City Attorney's Office on a new initiative called the City Circle. This is more real-time accountability where the city will be taking charge and the lead on violations of our municipal ordinances. Will be the city attorney, I think, will be speaking. She's nodding, yes. Or I didn't know if it was another one of our attorneys. We'll be speaking on this new project that's a partnership with the state's attorney's office, again, our CJC and our own attorney's office. The basic premise is that there'll be two paths folks can take. One would be immediately starting to do a path of restorative justice through our CJC, and if they either don't show up or don't take that path, moving into the court process using the criminal justice system, or the criminal court system, excuse me, rather than administrative court, which is how it's worked so far. And that the idea being that in real time, weekly accountability, we can have a system that functions better than the very backlog court system that's left up to its own devices. And then the third and final important one will be on the situation table, which I mentioned before in a prior mayor update. Ingrid Jonas, the senior advisor on community safety in my office, will be providing that update. I'm pleased to say next week we'll be doing the training version of the situation table for 2 intensive days. We have 50 partners already signed up to RSCP to learn about the situation table, to be able to participate in it. That is a critical piece of the success of this new pilot in July, because we need to make sure that partners are both educated on this new model, willing to participate, and willing to do the engagement work that's the critical the critical piece that will make this work, where we take individuals who are causing a high amount of harm, high level of risk involved with multiple issues that they're facing, and be able to do relentless intervention with them to bring that risk level down. And so we need to make sure the partners, whatever that combination may be, whether it's a housing provider, a school district, a mental health agency, whatever that might be, are all well versed in this so we can hit the ground running in July. And then finally, this year we were able to hire seasonal staff to staff our beach and parks and patrol portion of the BPD. I met with those 5 young people. They're very eager and very values aligned with Burlington around making sure that they are in our beach areas and parks, but providing what used to be, I think we call them the yellow shirts, which they'll be engaged throughout the summer, just helping to be a resource to community members and visitors, but also helping to keep an eye on things. And many of them are interested in a field of criminal justice or some community-based work, and some of them are UVM or Norwich students for their summer jobs. Others are pursuing this from another avenue, so it was exciting to meet with them and see what's coming next for the summer. And then the final piece I just want to talk about is my housing priority. There's some promising work that's being developed in our Office of Planning to help advance some new ideas related to how do we look to other communities and how they've leveraged public lands, so lands owned by either the city or other entities with public oversight, and being able to also apply some new thinking to our inclusionary zoning ordinance. They already started a conversation at the Planning Commission at their last meeting, but I look forward to starting in earnest this conversation this summer to look at different options we can have to get the most out of our IZ ordinance in a way that brings more affordable housing online now and doesn't simply rely on a housing trust fund where we can put money, but when everything costs more, that money goes less far. So making sure that we're really starting to put some strategic and innovative ideas forward. And I was mentioning this in the Board of Finance, but I see the Office of Planning as a robust partner with CEDO as we start to really build out the capacity of our housing team. And we'll talk a little bit more about the budget, but start to bring on more staff that can help us achieve the kind of housing numbers, new development that we really need in the city. The other thing on housing, I just want to say for the record, the governor unfortunately vetoed H91, which was the only piece of legislation working through its way through the legislative process to even address our homelessness crisis in any way, shape, or form. It was not a perfect bill by any means. I spoke to this in prior council meetings, but a small piece that would have been helpful and impactful was some level of funding to support roles like Sarah Russell's role, who is our specialist to end homelessness here on a local level. I think what the legislature and the governor continue to fail to really appreciate, the governor in particular, is how much of a local shift of the burden of trying to solve this issue happens to larger towns in the state of Vermont. And there was a small piece, a small glimmer in this particular bill that would have helped us a little bit shoulder the disproportionate amount of this crisis that Vermont is facing. Other parts of that bill didn't solve the immediacy of when changes to the emergency housing program change, the motel program, of the impacts it has on Burlington in particular, but it was at least a small step in the right direction, and I'm greatly disappointed that the governor still fails to put any other options on the table to help communities like Burlington help to solve and support the folks who are experiencing homelessness. And actually, the real final moment is, I just wanted to share, I always try to leave it on a high note. Burlington High School graduated last week, about 200 or so students. I might have that number wrong, but we was able to speak and help to celebrate those young people who are just so impressive in the number of things that they've achieved already as they embark into the big, bright world. But it was a real honor to be able to represent the city and give some remarks and help to shake hands of these young people. I reminded them that their voices are critical, especially in these times, and to keep staying engaged in our democracy on a local level, but certainly on a federal level, because this is the time we need them to step forward and to be engaged in our government more than ever. And I hope they heard that advice. And with that, that's my update. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We'll now turn to City Council General City Affairs. Is there any councilor that wishes to be recognized on this item? Councilor Grant.
Thank you. The mayor just mentioned that the chief plans to talk about his recruitment plan publicly, but I had might beat him a little bit to the punch because I wanted to highlight some of what is in his memo outlining a recruitment plan through the remainder of this current fiscal year, which is almost over, into fiscal year 27. As many people know, I had great frustration with the prior leadership of BPD, because when looking at the issues of recruitment locally within the state and within the country, it was very clear that recruitment had become an issue for not only policing, but also for fire departments as well. So there was a lot of conversations. And so when you look to see what organizations are reviewing this information, what organizations and departments, what are they doing, what are they recommending, and you hear the same things over and over again, which is that if a department is not utilizing marketing itself and using social media and digital advertising, they are clearly missing the boat, and we were missing the boat. We have started this summer off with less officers than we had last year. Now, the good thing is that there is a bump in the applications that we've received, and this particular plan is utilizing social media, it's utilizing digital advertising, and it is utilizing community engagement, which is something that we had not been properly doing. The overall objectives are to increase awareness and appeal for career opportunities within our police department, to build trust and engagement through authentic testimonials and local community involvement, as well as increase qualified applications through a multi-channeled approach, leveraging digital and in-person efforts. Some of the highlights are gathering employee testimonials, which would be shared on social media and used in ads that would be across various sites from LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We would also be targeting any particular schools or job fairs where BPD intends to be. They're going to use current BPD employees as ambassadors. I think that's really important. So saying to an officer, hey, we'd like you to go to your alma mater and talk about your experiences and why students should consider a career in public safety. Have a content calendar that's aligned with the hiring cycle. Also doing things such as working with the Vermont National Guard. The Vermont National Guard has a program called the Prime Program. It aligns soldiers, airmen, and their dependents with civilian employers. So this is something we haven't taken advantage of, even though it's been in place before, and now we will be. Utilizing beach and parks, working with the local college and area residents for this employment opportunity, identify sworn officers who can be mentors, and then staying in touch after the end of the summer, having a personal thank you note from the chief, making sure mentors maintain contact, working with our local HR department, which was also previously very problematic, and also tracking metrics that are going to track social media engagement, tracking metrics in terms of who's coming to the websites and career page traffic, tracking the cost per application, tracking the number of qualified applicants per channel to have a clear understanding of what is most advantageous for us to use, tracking event attendance, student feedback on campuses, reach, referral volume, touching these people again if they clicked on our ads. There's so much now that we are going to be doing that we simply haven't done. We are carrying over $350,000 in unused recruitment funds, which is deeply regrettable because we did not have any accountability previously, even though it was asked for repeatedly. So I'd like everyone to keep that in mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Councilor Newbeezer?
Well, first off, I just want to say thank you to Councilor Grant for that work. One of my earliest memories of you and I having a relationship and talking about city issues is you talking about the lack of a recruitment plan, is you talking about digital advertising and recruitment. And so we owe you as a community a debt of gratitude that we won't repay, but I do appreciate it.
And I have to give a big shout out to Chief Burke.
Sorry, okay.
I also just wanted to speak to boards and commissions. Briefly, I know that we've had some conversations as the committee that we want to debrief that process, and I know the mayor mentioned it tonight. I'm really committed to that, and I want to sort of throw it out publicly because I think we do have shared commitment to that. And I'm hoping that we can come up with a more fair process, a more equitable process, one that is not so determined by sort of the political and partisan winds of the day. Because I think traditionally that's the feedback I get from the public and constituents. That's the perception of it. And we need to be doing everything we can in these times in particular to fight back and or push back against those sorts of impulses so that we have a healthy democracy. So appreciate it and look forward to working with all you to get that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Is there anyone else with City Council General City Affairs? I will note that this is generally reserved for updates and not for back and forth, but is there anyone else that has an update for General City Affairs? All right. So with that, we will now move to the next item on our agenda, which is our consent agenda. I would welcome a motion on the consent agenda. Anyone?
I can make a, oh, sorry, Councilor Carpenter.
Yeah, I will note that when we adopted our agenda, Councilor Carpenter, we removed item 6.12, the new North End sidewalk scoping study approval, and so any motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended would be, as I just noted.
I will move that we adopt the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. So we now turn to item 7 on our agenda, which is City Council boards and commissions. As noted, there are a number of boards and commissions that are appointed by the regular City Council. There are also a number of positions that are appointed by the City Council with mayor presiding. We will first deal with those appointments that are within the purview of the regular City Council, then we'll briefly recess the City Council meeting to turn to the City Council with mayor presiding. If there is anyone tuned in for our meetings as the Local Control Commission or the Local Cannabis Control Commission, we will turn to those once we are done with the boards and commissions appointment with City Council Mayor presiding. Before turning to a motion on the City Council appointments, I would like to thank Councillor McKnight, Councillor Litwin, Councillor Newbeezer, Councillor Grant, as well as the Mayor's Deputy Chief of Staff, Joe McGee, for their work on our annual Boards and Commissions Nominating Committee. I think a great deal of the work that we'll now turn to is a result of the good work and collaboration that was reflected on that committee, and greatly appreciate those who took part in it. Also, most importantly, I want to extend my gratitude to everyone who applied to serve our city. I'm very glad that a number of folks will be returning to their positions, very glad that a number of folks will be coming into these positions anew. And before we turn to it, we'd just like to note that even if there's any individual out there that was not appointed to a position that they would have liked, or any position at all, would strongly encourage them to please stay tuned into this process. I think we're very lucky to live in a lean-in community where there's so many people that want to be involved in developing the future of Burlington. And so whatever the results of this evening, very appreciative of those folks who stood up, and would encourage them to continue to stay involved. So with that, there is a proposed slate from our Boards and Commissions Nominating Committee that was posted to our City Council with Mayor presiding agenda. There are two halves to that document, one being the City Council appointments, the other being the City Council with Mayor presiding appointments. We are just on the City Council appointments, and Councilor McKnight, as chair of our Boards and Commissions Nominating Committee, I would welcome a motion from you on that item.
Great, thank you. I would move to consider the slate that was passed out of the Boards and Commissions Committee, and ask for the floor back after a second.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight, and seconded by Councilor Litwin. Councilor McKnight, I would just note one item here, just as a point of information. I think there had been some discussion around the Green Mountain Transit Board position, which is listed on the slate. Are you intending to move that as part of the slate, or would that one?
This is very confusing, which I'm going to mention in a minute. So I meant to move this with the slight edit based on an administrative issue that was brought to our attention to remove the Green Mountain Transit Board role and consider that as a separate nomination.
I accept that friendly amendment to the motion.
Okay. So Councilor McKnight has moved the slate of regular City Council appointments with the subtraction of the Green Mountain Transit Board position, which had been listed on our agenda as item 7.10, seconded by Councilor Litwin. So just to confirm, if the motion that is now before us goes to a vote, we would move on that item, and then there would be 3 additional appointments for the council to address individually. The first one would be the Church Street Marketplace Commission appointment that was not on the slate as originally approved by the Boards and Commissions Nominating Committee. We would then, pursuant to this motion, turn to both the Green Mountain Transit Voting Board position as well as the Green Mountain Transit alternate position. Councilor McKnight, did you want the floor back?
Yes, just briefly. I want to add to a couple of the other comments and discussion about the Boards and Commission process. And again, first, I think most importantly, I want to thank everyone who applied. We are just so lucky to have an amazing group of people who were willing to step up and serve their community. And all of us on the committee just kept saying over and over, wow, this is a really hard decision. We have so many qualified people for so many of these boards and commissions. And it was a really inspiring process to go through. This was my first time having really a front row seat with this process, and as others have mentioned, we have a lot of room for improvement here. This can be very difficult for applicants, staff, as well as counselors. I also want to appreciate my colleagues on the committee. We had overall a very collaborative process, and there was a lot of compromise, and I think that is how we should always be stepping up to serve the city. And then looking at process, there's, for me, serving as the chair of this committee for the first time, there's no roadmap to how you're supposed to do this. And Mayor, you mentioned, so your thoughts on deferring to incumbents. It was explained to me that that's how we had always done it, and it seems like you have a different perspective, and I think it's really important that we're having that conversation, and that's something we all keep talking about because we have so much work to do in terms of just making the whole process easier, but as others have mentioned, our application process and the ultimate makeup of boards and commissions needs to be much more representative of what Burlington looks like and who lives here overall, and celebrating the diversity of perspectives and lived experiences that we have. So I'm certainly committed to moving that forward, and I look forward to those discussions and was glad to hear all of the commitment across the board.
Thank you very much, Councilor McKnight. So the motion before us is the slate before the regular city council, again, minus the Green Mountain Transit Board positions and the Church Street Marketplace Commission position. Is there any councilor that wishes to be recognized on the motion? Councilor Grant.
So first I have a point of information because I'm a little bit confused. We have these particular appointments that are listed under our item number 7 under the deliberative agenda for the city council. And then we have the slate that's actually under the agenda for a city council meeting with mayor presiding. So I'm not clear, we're only voting on these particular ones that are listed under item 7 of the deliberative agenda because these are the purview of the city council. I'm not clear. I don't remember us previously having to vote on these separately.
We won't be voting on them separately. The positions that are all listed under item 7 are on the slate that has been moved by Councilor McKnight, with the exception of item 7.10. Councilor McKnight moved that position would be excluded, but all the other positions on here, with the exception of 7.10, as well as one Church Street Marketplace Commission position, are on the slate that has been moved. So the vote will be on that slate, and then we would turn to those individual.
So I want to be clear as to what slate we are talking about, because there is no slate that I can see that's attached to this item 7 on the city council agenda. There is a slate and then separate additional nominations for the vacant spots that weren't agreed upon on the slate on the city council meeting with mayor presiding.
Right. So the slate as approved by the Board and Commission's nominating committee is posted to the city council with mayor presiding, as indicated before. The first half of that slate is those appointments that will be made by the city council with mayor presiding. The second part of that document is the slate that has been moved by Councilor McKnight. And just for the sake of transparency, and Councilor McKnight can correct me if I'm wrong, the appointments that are now a part of this slate are the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, Andy Montrell, the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission alternate, Jonathan Chappell-Sokol, the Church Street Marketplace Commission, Mark Boucher, the Church Street Marketplace Commission, Linda Magoon, as well as Samuel Tolstoy. 3 fence viewers, Vikas Manjapudi, Shay Totten, and Charlie Giannoni. And 3 Housing Board of Review positions, Joshua Ronsky, Olivia Irene Taylor, and Betsy McGavisk. So that is on the slate now before us. There's 1 Church Street Marketplace Commission and 2 Green Mountain Transit Board positions that we'll have to turn to individually after the vote on this motion.
Okay, my apologies. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to understand why isn't the slate attached to, if we're voting on the slate now, why isn't the slate attached to item number 7 on the city council meeting?
Right,
because we're technically not in city council with mayor presiding where the slate is attached.
Okay.
I just want to be very clear, because this was a very difficult and at times uncomfortable process, and so.
Understood. I mean, look, we can certainly, after this meeting, post the slate as has been approved to the regular city council meeting as well. It is posted in its entirety, though, for the public to review on the city council with mayor presiding agenda.
Okay, so then we're not going to have city council with mayor presiding?
No, as
we are.
mentioned, we will turn to the city council mayor presiding as soon as we're done with the appointments here. And then I'm anticipating another motion on the city council with mayor presiding slate at that point in time.
Okay, and so at that point in time, we can place a nomination for an empty spot, for an application that we did receive.
Correct. So the motion now before us is on the slate. The floor is not open to nominations for any of those positions. When we are done with that, we will individually turn to the Church Street Marketplace Commission and the Green Mountain Transit Board positions, and the floor will be open for nominations for those positions. Ultimately, the mayor will chair city council with mayor presiding, but my understanding is that we will follow the same process there. If there is a motion on the slate, then it will cover most of the positions that are on there, but I do understand there are some positions that are not on the slate, which we would then turn to individually, and the floor would be open for nominations on those roles too. And so that includes those roles that are on the city council with mayor presiding portion. And my understanding is that the two roles that are not on the proposed slate there are for the Parks Commission and the Board of Registration for Voters, which we are not dealing with now.
Okay, I just find this confusing because this is not how we've done it the last 2 years, and so being confused for voting for a slate that's not listed on the agenda. I understand we're telling people where to look for it, but making sure that it gets attached to this item will be very, very helpful. I had a different sort of, to my comments now, I had a different experience. I did caution about process, and this was based on my experience of being on the committee for 2 years. I've seen the same problems now for a third year in a row. Inconsistency with dealing with untimely applications, which I think presented issues of fairness, and that included untimely applications from people from different political parties. I had very real concerns about the fact that we're politicizing this so much. There were some very overt comments that were made in open meeting that were deeply concerning to me. And I did state that I felt backed in a corner. I definitely felt that there were statements that were made that were unnecessary, and that I felt that my voice was not being respected. And I also felt that there was an applicant who, quite frankly, had their background weaponized, because I expressed concerns about one position and was told, well, then we can go back and we can, look at the police commission, knowing that the issue around the police commission, which was very, I have to say, near and dear to me, because I served on the police commission and there's been no representative for the Central District since I left to become a city councilor. And it has been very, very hard to watch qualified people from the Central District be overlooked. So to be able to negotiate to have someone from Central District was very important, and to have someone from Central District who had lived experience and had a history and had a real understanding of the issues facing Central District, the district that is most affected by the drug crisis, the district that has the most incidents, the district where, our use of force court cases originate. It was very disconcerting. And then to say, oh, well, since you care so much about diversity, we'll put in this other person. And that was devaluing them in a way that made me very uncomfortable. So I need us, we all need to think about this. There definitely needs to be a separate meeting to really debrief what happened this year and really put processes in place that include how do we handle consistently untimely applications? How do we better communicate with people who are serving on commissions and boards whose terms are expiring and they want to continue? Because we've seen each year people not realize that just because they don't resign their position, that makes them exempt from filing an application. The city has not done that in a consistent manner, and we've had problems with that each time for the last 3 years. I think also that, yes, incumbency has been respected. There's a learning curve on some of these commissions and boards, but incumbency does not guarantee that someone, again, get a position. So I'm not sure where that information came from, but I think having a debrief and really looking at the process would be important. There were equity issues in my mind. There are fairness issues in my mind. I think in the past we were upfront with people with regards to why they weren't being considered and why other people are being considered. And there were problems this year where we weren't being upfront with people, and I was deeply concerned about that. Thank you.
Is there any other counselor that wishes to be recognized on this motion? All right. As a reminder, this is on the slate of candidates put forward by the Boards and Commissions Nominating Committee for the regular City Council, with the exception of the 2 Green Mountain Transit Board positions, as well as the Church Street Marketplace Commission position. We will go to a vote. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? That carries unanimously. We now have 3 individual appointments to turn to. The first is the Church Street Marketplace Commission, and on this, I will open the floor to nominations. Councilor Barlow.
I nominate Christopher Hazley.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Are there any other nominations for this position? Are there any other nominations for this position? All right, we will close nominations. Is there any counselor that wishes to be recognized on this nomination? All right, we will go to a vote then. As a reminder on appointments, which is an exception to our rule on resolutions, counselors may vote yes or no, or may abstain. And on this nomination, the clerk will please call the roll.
Councilor Barlow.
Yes.
Councilor Bergman.
Abstain.
Councilor Broderick.
Abstain.
Councilor Carpenter.
Yes.
Councilor Grant.
Abstain.
Councilor Kane.
No.
Councilor Litwin.
Yes.
Councilor McKnight.
Yes.
Councilor Newbeezer.
Abstain.
Councilor Schachter.
Yes.
Councilor Singh.
Yes.
City Council President Travers.
Yes.
7 ayes, 1 nay, 4 abstentions.
So with 7 yeses, 1 no, and 4 abstentions, and the vote requiring a majority of the City Council, that nomination is approved. Thank you. The next position that we need to turn to is the voting role on the Green Mountain Transit Board, and we will open the floor to nominations on this position. Councilor Newbeezer.
I'd like to nominate Chapin Spencer.
Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Are there any other nominations for this position? Any other nominations? All right, we will close nominations then. Is there any counselor that wishes to be recognized on this item? All right, we will go to a vote then. We'll try a voice vote on this nomination. All in favor of the nomination of Chapin Spencer to the voting role on the Green Mountain Transit Board, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. We will now turn to the alternate role on the Green Mountain Transit Board and open the floor to nominations. Councilor McKnight.
I'd like to nominate Matt Kobzik.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations for the alternate position on the Green Mountain Transit Board? We will close nominations then. Does any councilor wish to be recognized on this item? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote, and we'll try a voice vote on this one too. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous as well. Thank you very much. And again, congratulations to those who have been appointed and reappointed, and my encouragement to those who were not to please stay tuned in and to please continue to apply in the future. As mentioned, we would now turn to the City Council with Mayor presiding, and to that end, we'll recess the City Council meeting at 8:01 p.m. And Mayor, we'll turn the floor to you.
Thank you very much. And I will call to order the City Council meeting with Mayor presiding at 8:01 p.m. on Monday, June 16th, 2025. Our first item is the agenda. Is there a motion on the agenda?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Moved by Councilor Travers. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Grant. Any discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. On to our next item, which is the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions indicated.
Moved by Councilor Travers. Is there a second?
Second.
You have to be fast. Councilor Grant, thank you for the second. Any discussion on the consent agenda before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we are now on to item 3, which includes a very large number of boards and commission appointments. I understand, similar to your last, the pause city council meeting, we're going to consider perhaps a motion with a slate. So I'm going to look to the chair, Councilor McKnight.
Yes, I move to adopt the slate of 2025 boards and commission appointments that we have here on pages 1 and 2 of item 4. Councilor McKnight, I'm going to just offer a point of inquiry here myself as the chair of this convening. The item 3.25, which is a Parks and Rec Commission, and item 3.41 on this agenda as warned would be 2 positions perhaps that are going to be acted upon separately because there is not a position in that slate. Correct.
So just to be clear on the motion here, the slate is all the other items, so I'm not going to do each of the numbers individually, except for item 3.25, which is a Parks and Recreation Commissioner position, as well as item 3.41, which is a Board of Registration of Voters position that we will take up individually.
Correct.
Is that your motion? Okay, so that is the motion. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Schachter. Is there any discussion on this motion before we call the vote? Councilor Niebeser.
Just for the sake of transparency, and maybe I don't want to do this to us, but I wonder if it actually is worth running through the list and saying the names. That would be my preference, not to make us do that, but I think it is helpful for folks watching and the public and these applicants as well.
Thank you, Councilor Niebeser. I will say, unlike the City Council agenda, the names are posted in this particular agenda as the recommended action. Would you like to list those names, Councilor?
I would. Maybe I'm being overly
Transparency is okay. If you want to pull the mic a little closer to your mouth, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yes. Should I do that now?
Yes.
The slate as listed online includes Airport Commission, Jeff Schulman and Andrew Savage. Apologies in advance for everyone if I butcher your name. Cemetery Commission includes 2 seats, Jennifer Diaz and Alexandria Millerhouse. Conservation Board includes Rebecca Roman, Ryan Crehan, Evan Horn, and Dale Azaria and Kelly Farrell. Design Advisory Board includes Gabriel Stedecker and Ronald Wanamaker. Development Review Board includes Caitlin Halpert, Jeffrey Hand, and Evan Gould. The Electric Light Commission includes Andy Voda and Bethany Whitaker. Fire Commission includes Kevin McLaughlin and Linda Sheehy. Sorry, Linda. I think I just butchered your last name. You're the first one. Board of Health, Jane Seymour and Jennifer Zakaris. Library Commission, Sally O'Brien. Parks and Recreation, Ryan Bergman, Kirsten Boehm, Nate Lantieri. And then one open seat that we'll discuss. Planning Commission, Alexander Friend. Police Commission, Robert Depper III, Karen Paul, Julia Giorio, Tessa Brooks Fast. Public Works Commission, Elena Fox, Peggy O'Neill, Julie Hayes. Retirement Board, Bob Hooper. Board of Tax Appeals, Sonja Fuller. Vehicle for Hire Licensing Board, Dave Hartnett. Vehicle for Hire Licensing Board, Stephen Hamlin. To re-advertise, Board of Voter Registration of Voters, Lauren Ebersol, Allison Hart, Adam Franz, and a position that we will discuss after the motion. And then it does actually remind me, I'm glad I read it because I almost forgot, I do need to recuse myself from one of these appointments, the Retirement Board, for a professional conflict.
Based on the nominee, just to be clear.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you for that, Councilor Niebuhr. Are you all set? Okay. Any other discussion on the motion, which again is the slate minus item 3.25 and item 3.41? Okay, seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. We're going to try this to see if it's unanimous or not. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. On to item 3.25. We're going to do the similar process. A reminder, as the council president just said in your prior meeting, you get one affirmative vote if there are nominations. You can abstain or vote no. And I will ask first if there's nominations, then we'll see if the individual is here to address. If there is a nominated person present, then we'll open up for discussion, and then I will call the question. That is our process. Okay, so our first item is our next item is 3.25, the Parks and Recreation Commission with term expiring June 30th, 2028. Are there any nominations? Councilor Grant.
I'd like to nominate Carolyn Felix.
Carolyn Felix is nominated. First, we'll take up this nomination. Is Carolyn Felix here by chance or online? Seeing none. Well, we'll take this first nomination first. I forget now, it's been a minute. Do I take both nominations? Phone a friend at the same time?
I think we have to vote on them individually.
Just one at a time or more than one?
I think historically we've taken all nominations.
And then I do the first
and then
one.
gone to a vote in order of how they were presented.
It's been a lot has happened since the last time I did mayor presiding with appointments, so thank you for the phone a friend. Okay, so are there any other, I knew this note meant something. Are there any other nominations? I saw Councilor Carpenter's hand.
I'd like to nominate Hallie Davis.
Hallie Davis. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Okay, is there any discussion on the nominees? Councilor Carpenter.
Just to say, Parks and Rec is always the most difficult because we have a lot of good nominees for that position. But I've known Hallie for a number of years. She's very active in our new North End neighborhoods. She knows Burlington well. We are a neighborhood with a lot of parks, and I find Hallie a very cooperative, moderate, engaged constituent and person, so I think she'll make a great commissioner.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Is there any other discussion on the nominations? Councilor Grant.
Thank you. Carolyn Felix was one of the candidates that we interviewed. I just really appreciated the way she talked about how she would address the position, how her background serves her with skills and experiences that would definitely make her an asset. She's been an agricultural extension volunteer in the Peace Corps. She's been a caretaker at the Ethan Allen Homestead for more than 10 years. She's worked closely with the Parks Department and other city departments, and I also appreciated her comments from the point of being an advocate and also being an educator, because one of the things we really want to make sure is that children and families continue to find joy in our parks, and we're able to maintain high levels of activities in our parks, and I think she would be well suited for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Is there any further discussion on these nominations? Councilor Litwin.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I really just wanted to thank both the applicants, because this was one of those examples that I think we touched on, where this particular board had several people who were reapplying for their positions that we all agreed to reappoint, and then only one vacancy with a bunch of folks who were just incredibly dedicated to our parks, incredibly qualified, and really took the time on their applications and in their interviews. And so I just want to extend a thank you to both of them for everything that they already do and for going through that process.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I also realized I did not see if Hallie Davis was here. Sorry for that error on my part. Is Hallie Davis present or online and would like to address before we go to the vote?
Emma, she's online.
She is online.
Yeah.
Can you do whatever you need to do to see if she,
Actually,
the
she
magic of
was-
the Zoom. And
She was, but
she was online, okay. And she's not anymore?
No.
Okay, all right. Apologies for missing that step, Hallie. All right, so if there's no further discussion on these nominations, we will take them in the order that they were made. And I believe we'll have to call roll, I would assume, on this. So the first nomination that I will call the vote on is for Carolyn Felix. And will the clerk start the roll?
Counselor Barlow,
Abstain.
Counselor Bergman,
Yes.
Counselor Broderick,
Yes.
Counselor Carpenter,
Abstain.
Counselor Grant,
Yes.
Counselor Kane,
Yes.
Counselor Litwin,
Abstain?
Counselor McKnight,
Abstain.
Counselor Newbeezer,
Abstain.
Counselor Schachter,
Abstain.
Counselor Singh,
Abstain.
City Council President Travers,
Abstain.
Mayor Mulvaney Stanek.
Yes.
5 ayes, 8 abstentions.
Thank you. And with that, the nomination fails. We'll move on to the second nomination of Hallie Davis, and I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Barlow,
Yes.
Counselor Bergman,
Abstain.
Counselor Broderick,
Abstain.
Counselor Carpenter,
Yes.
Counselor Grant,
Abstain.
Counselor Kane,
Abstain.
Counselor Litwin,
Yes.
Counselor McKnight,
Yes.
Counselor Newbeezer,
Abstain.
Counselor Schachter,
Yes.
Counselor Singh,
Yes.
City Council President Travers,
Yes.
Mayor Mulvaney Stanek.
Abstain.
Seven ayes and 6 nays.
Thank you very-
Abstentions,
Point
sorry.
of information.
Hold on a second. Sorry, what did I just?
7 ayes and 6 abstentions.
Thank you very much, Lori. I appreciate it.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify on
Did
the
you have
last.
a point of order?
I did. I said point of
I
information.
was
Sorry.
trying to listen to the clerk first. I now recognize you.
Thank you. The clerk mistakenly said 5 and 7 on the prior vote, and I thought it was supposed to be 6 and 7, and the second vote clarified that for me. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
I heard the clerk say 5-8 on the count on the first roll,
Is that correct?
because there's 13 voting members of,
Okay, thank you.
including myself. Okay. All right, so back to the nomination of Hallie Davis, with a 7-6 vote, Hallie is the nominee for the Parks and Recreation Commission term expiring 6/30/2028. Thank you, Hallie. Thank you, Carolyn. And as other folks have said already, we really appreciate the service folks have, the interest in serving that folks have here in Burlington. Moving on to our next item is item, I have to flip a page, so far down. Item 3.41, which is the board for registration of voters, one seat with a term expiring June 30th of 2030. And I, again, will repeat the same process. I'll ask if there are nominations and the similar flow that we had before. So are there any nominations? Councillor Grant.
I nominate Kevin Lewis.
There's a nomination for Kevin Lewis. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Seeing no other nominations, is Kevin still here? Kevin is still here. Would you like to address us? I know you did during public comment of the council meeting, but I would welcome you if you want to say a couple words.
Thank you for the nomination. If voted in, I'm looking forward to working with the community and being a part of the board and serving Burlington. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. So with that, is there any discussion from the council on this nomination before we vote? Councillor Grant?
Thank you. I would like to thank Kevin for his email that he sent the council. I hope councilors took the time to read it. This is a situation where I feel that we haven't had full transparency. We have a spot open. He is qualified. The political affiliation, which for this particular position we do have to look at because we can't have an imbalance, but the political affiliation is independent. We don't have any independence on this board. There was not agreement to put him on the slate, even though he was qualified, he was independent, and no one else applied. And there was no reason given. And I'm hoping that we can move him forward so that I believe he can do good work for us in the city. And if there's a reason that people feel that they can't move him forward, I think we need to be transparent as to the reason why, because I just don't understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Is there any further discussion on this nomination? Did I see another hand before I go to? No? Okay, Councillor Carpenter?
Hi. I was not involved in any of this discussion, and I don't know Kevin, but I read that he certainly is qualified. For me, it's an issue of balance and primarily geography. We have 3 of the current people sitting and the current people proposed, recognizing 1 vacancy. We have 3 commissioners from the 1-8 district, 4 from the 2-3 district, 3 from the 4-7 district, and only 1 from the 5-6 district. And I appreciate Kevin's interest, but that would then put 5 people from the 2-3 district, actually really from the 2 ward, and still leaves only 5-6 with 1. And so I just think we need geographic balance because these people sit at the polls. They need to interact with the people of that ward or that district on voting day. And so for me, it's a geographic balance. We do have 2, we have 1 independent / progressive and 1 Democrat progressive, and then we have 3 Democrats, 4 progressives, and 2 Republicans, and then a vacancy. So again, for me, it's the geographic balance.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Is there any further discussion on this nomination? Councillor Bergman.
I would just say that there's not only no requirement of a geographic balance, but there's no necessity of it. The people who sit in that position get to look at the voters, they get to look at the lists, they get to act straightforwardly and independently. They don't have a role that requires any affiliation with the geographic political subdivision. Maybe if there were applicants who had applied from the under geographically represented areas, it would make sense, but it makes no sense now. There were none, and we should fill this role. I hear tell he wasn't even interviewed, which is, in my mind, pretty rude, but in essence, you've got a 1 qualified candidate, and he's in front of us, and there's no reason, and particularly no good reason, why he should not be appointed to the position, the only person who did apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Councilor McKnight.
Just a brief point of clarification there. The committee established that we were only interviewing contested seats as part of the application and interview process, so that's why we determined not to bring Kevin in for an interview, not for any other reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. I'm going to do the first pass, Councilor Grant, that y'all do during council meetings. So I'm going to go to Councilor Newbeezer, and then we'll go to you. Well, Councilor Broadwick, and then to you. Yeah.
I appreciate it. This one's important to me because although it may sound cheesy or corny, I am very passionate about protecting our democracy. I think we're living through one of the darkest times in our country, and that's not hyperbole or exaggeration or grandstanding. That is the reality that we face as human beings today. I'm not going to speak to any individual counselor, but I am going to discuss this appointment as I've seen the process play out, because I think we can't do it again this way, particularly with something like the Board of Voter Reg, which should be a non-political body, period. When we were in committee, there was some discussion that this application, whose political affiliation was listed as independent, initially, well, actually, they may be a progressive, and that's going to impact the partisan makeup of this commission. The only reason, and then we stopped talking about this, that I heard at the time was that the chair of the board, who is listed as an independent/progressive currently, was a reference. We have never applied this sort of scrutiny, that standard, or that line of thinking to an application to this board. It is one of the few boards that we do have charter responsibility around partisan affiliation, but that has never been something that we've done. I know I'm early on the council, but I need to state that. There was discussion around needing clarity on how fusion applies, fusion voting meaning multiple party listings, applies to our charter requirements of no more than 6 people on this board from an individual party. I think that's fair clarification to get, and clarification I appreciated, but clarification that should have no impact on the appointment of someone who is putting down that they are an independent, because they are explicitly not affiliated with a party and would not impact our charter requirement. After that, in more discussion, in the last meeting I wasn't able to attend to, but I did watch over. I had a work commitment in Randolph, so thought I would have internet connection, and I didn't. There was not much discussion as to why this application was not included on the slate, if any. I don't believe there was, to my memory. And then between then and this council meeting, and now on the floor, we've come to the conclusion that one, somehow the applicant may not be qualified, was one thing that I've heard, which I think there's no basis for, and two, on the substance of this, and two, that we should consider geographic diversity. I actually think geographic diversity is incredibly important to consider. I have argued that for my time on the council, and we have never, while that's been a factor in conversation last time we did this, between both caucuses in discussion, we have not applied that standard to say that we are going to reapply someone who there's no other reason that we wouldn't accept their appointment. There's no competency issue, there's no substantive reason that there would be an issue with this person serving. There's some discussion that I've heard around, well, let's see, because geographic diversity is important, and so let's see who reapplies, but we just had a process. We see every few years when we have an opening and then we apply, and these are the applicants we got. It was a months-long opportunity. So I just want to say thank you for applying. Appreciate you bearing with us.
I hope that we can support you for this role. If not, I hope that you will consider staying involved in whatever capacity is appropriate for you. And with that, I will be supporting this nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Niebuhr. Because we're in some level of debate and discussion, I can't see that screen right there if there is timing going on. So just saying, if we can keep it generally of under 5 minutes, I would appreciate it. That was nothing to Councilor Niebuhr, just wanted to put that out there since we're having a more robust discussion. And next up in the queue, I have Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. I think as someone who was not heavily involved at all in the process of choosing the applicants, Councilor Niebuhr's comments are very troubling to me on what seems to have taken place in regards to this application. I fully support it. In regards to the geographic argument, the wards elect clerks and inspectors to carry out election duties specific to their ward. We appoint the Board of Registration of Voters for a variety of things, but in general to serve the city. And just looking at even if we were to go that route, I do see that that the central district, specifically Ward 3, not Ward 2 like where Kevin is from, but a central district ward has vacancies in its clerk and inspector positions along with Ward 8, and that the south end wards do not. So if we're talking about if we were to silo people geographically, I think those would actually be the places where it's most needed. But that's just a hypothetical because I don't believe that this should be a geographic body either. We appoint boards and commissions folks to serve the city, and that's that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. I next have Councilor Grant, and I'm mindful of what time it is, so this is the second round for Councilor Grant. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to respond to the concept of geographical location. I believe in that, but that's not what's been done in this process. I cannot, and I'll just repeat again, I did a number of times, I've talked about the police commission and the lack of representation for the central district, and it was a very politicized commission, and I could go on and on and on about how politicized it was, including to the point that a former commissioner had to resign because their employer told them they were deeply conflicted. I think, and that was stated in their resignation letter, which is public. The only body that firmly maintains proper geographical representation is the council. And I would accept that argument if it was something that was actually looked at. So if we go through the list of the boards and commissions, we will see that, for lack of a better term, representation across geographical locations is uneven at best. So with all due respect, that to me is not a valid argument. We have someone who is qualified. We have only one other person from Ward 2 on that board. There is not an issue with regards to the political affiliation alignment, and they're qualified and they're ready to serve. It would be an injustice if we are not allowing him to serve, especially when no one else filled out an application. It would be different if he wasn't qualified. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Councilor Litwin, and I'm mindful of what time it is, so Councilor Litwin.
Thank you. I will just say I am mindful of geographic diversity. I think on the boards and commissions where that comes into play, this is certainly one of those in my mind. While there may not be a requirement, it's certainly something that I like to take into consideration. I think there's no issue with this person's affiliation as an independent. And in fact, there was an applicant from Ward 3 to the Police Commission, and that person was not moved forward by either party. And so what I would say additionally, the question about qualifications certainly was what we all had an opportunity to review and debate. In this case, this application consisted of a single sentence. The sentence was, I hope to see how voting happens in elections and be a part of the processes in making elections happen. I was not comfortable, given the importance of this role, and to what Councilor Newbieser's point was about how important the Board of Voters is, particularly at this moment, that this represented the qualifications that I personally am looking for when elevating someone to the Board of Voter Registration. So while I appreciate the application, and I certainly appreciate the interest and appreciate everything that Kevin does in the community, which I read in the email that came through this weekend, I will be voting to re-advertise the position. Thank you.
Councilor Newbieser, second pass.
I'm sorry, very briefly. One, I believe we did just...
I think you need to speak a little bit closer.
Is this better?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. I believe we did just appoint someone to the Police Commission from Ward 3, and I can double check it, Ward 2, a central district nonetheless. And just my final point on geographic diversity that I forgot to mention was, if you look at the entire sort of grouping of all boards and commissioners, 4-7 and 5-6 are drastically overrepresented and have been historically. And so while I appreciate that dynamic in this particular instance, that's something I've been bringing up and talking about and is worth noting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Newbieser. I'm going to call the question. You're welcome. And I'm going to ask for the clerk to call the roll.
Councilor Barlow?
Abstain.
Councilor Bergman?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Carpenter?
Abstain?
Councilor Grant?
Yes.
Councilor Kane?
Yes.
Councilor Litwin?
No.
Councilor McKnight?
Abstain.
Councilor Newbieser?
Yes.
Councilor Schachter?
Abstain.
Councilor Singh?
Abstain.
City Council President Travers?
Yes.
Mayor Mulvaney Stanek?
Yes.
7 ayes, 1 nay, and 5 abstentions.
So with a 7-5-1 vote, Kevin Lewis is appointed to the Board for Registration of Voters, term expiring June 30th, 2030. Kevin, thank you very much for bearing with us and for your service to the City of Burlington. Thank you very much. And so with no other, let me just double check, no other business for the City Council with Mayor presiding, I adjourn the meeting at 8:33 p.m. and pass the gavel back to Council President Travers.
Thank you, Mayor. Before turning back to the City Council meeting, as mentioned, we have 2 other meetings we need to turn to. One is the Local Control Commission, and then the other is the Local Cannabis Control Commission. As folks get those agendas up here, I will turn to Councilor Broderick for motions on these items as chair of our License Committee. And the first motion on the Local Control Commission agenda is the agenda. Commissioner Broderick, may I have a motion for you on that?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Grant. We'll go to a vote on that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. We'll now turn to our consent agenda. And Commissioner Broderick, may I turn to you for a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions indicated.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Schachter. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. We now have 5 items on our deliberative agenda, and Commissioner Broderick, may I turn to you for a motion on item 3.1.
Move to approve the 2025-2026 first, second, and third class liquor license applications for AC Hotel, 130 Bank Street with the following conditions contingent upon fire marshal approval, all city permits, need to be closed out and with all standard conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bergman. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Commissioner Broderick, item 3.2.
Move to approve the 2025-2026 first and third class liquor license applications for Bangkok Bistro in the Alley, 36 Thorson Way, with the following conditions: complete record checks, contingent upon fire marshal approval, and with all standard conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Schachter. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Item 3.3, please, Commissioner Broderick.
Move to approve the 2025-2026 outside consumption permit application for Bangkok Bistro in the Alley, 36 Thorson Way, with the following conditions: complete record checks.
Thank you. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Schachter. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we will vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Item 3.4, please, Commissioner Broderick.
Move to approve the 2025-2026 first and third class liquor license applications for Periwinkle's 227 Main Street with the following conditions: contingent upon fire marshal approval and with all standard conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Bergman. Any discussion on this item? We'll go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. And the final deliberative item is item 3.5. Please, Commissioner Broderick.
Move to approve the 2025-2026 outside consumption permit application for Poppy Cafe and Market, 88 Oak Street.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Seeing no other business before the Local Control Commission, we will adjourn that meeting at 8:37 p.m. and now turn to our Local Cannabis Control Commission, which just has a consent agenda on the proposed agenda. But first, we need that agenda. So Commissioner Broderick, may I turn to you for a motion here?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second on this item?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Schachter. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous, and we have our agenda. Commissioner Broderick, may I turn to you for a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions indicated.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Schachter. Any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Seeing no other business before the Local Cannabis Control Commission, we will adjourn that meeting at 8:38 p.m. and resume our City Council meeting. Where we are in our City Council meeting now is the deliberative agenda. And item 8.1 is a resolution designating Church Street as Canada Street, Rue du Canada, to welcome Canadian visitors and welcome tourism. The main sponsor of this resolution is Councillor McKnight. And Councillor McKnight, when you're prepared, I would turn to you for a motion on this item.
Yes, thank you, President Travers. I move to waive the reading and adopt the resolution and ask for the floor back after a second.
Thank you, Councillor McKnight. Is there a second to that motion? Thank you, Councillor Bergman. Councillor McKnight, with my Canadian flag that you have provided us now here waving at the council table, I will give the floor back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, President Travers. I don't have a flag stand at my spot, though.
It's okay.
Seems
We'll work
unfair.
it out.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to bring this resolution forward. I think this is a small but powerful way to celebrate our neighbors to the north and help make them feel more at home in Burlington. I want to thank the Treasurer's Office, Treasurer Pichek, for coming tonight, and also in the background for working hard with his team to encourage us to move this resolution forward, as well as providing resources to us to do that. I also want to thank the mayor's team and department heads for giving input and collaboration, and all of the co-sponsors, bipartisan co-sponsors, for your support. It's really important that we show this support in such a bilateral kind of way. So as you heard a little bit earlier, the numbers about Canadian tourism tell a really sobering story. Border crossings from Canada into Vermont have dropped about 30 to 40% since this time last year. And these big declines, they aren't just data points, they're a sign, a very clear sign, that the Trump administration's damaging political rhetoric and inhumane immigration policies have discouraged travel and hurt the goodwill between our two countries. So temporarily renaming Church Street, and I want to clarify that this is a temporary thing, just for basically July and August of this year, to rename Church Street as Canada Street Rue de Canada, is a symbolic and lighthearted gesture. And symbolism is important, though. It shows that we care, it resonates beyond our borders, and it sends a clear message that here in Burlington, we are about connection, not conflict. And we all know we have big challenges in front of us, both locally and nationally. And while I really wish we did, we just don't have a magic wand to solve every single complex problem we face overnight. We can't do that with the opioid crisis. We can't do that with the shortage of affordable housing. We can't wave a wand and change the fact that Donald Trump is the president and he's destroying relationships with our allies around the world and using ICE to terrorize Black and brown people here at home. So what do we do? Do we sit back and just let ourselves be paralyzed by the magnitude of it all? Do we do nothing because we're scared that people won't like our ideas? I would say no. We keep trying. We try new things. We take actions that are small, like this, and also that are large, like many of the other topics on our agenda tonight. And so because we might not have that magic wand, but it turns out that we do have the power to wave this, what I'm thinking of, a tiny little magic flag. And no, I am not afraid to be a dork on the council floor. We do have the power to wave this flag and say, hey, Canadians, we appreciate you. We can use our voices to say loudly and clearly, Canadians are welcome here. We can, overnight, hang up a new name above our city's iconic pedestrian street that takes steps to help reverse some of that negativity and celebrate our shared values. So tonight, we are doing that. We're doing what we can. And so stay tuned for details on a sign unveiling and some event programming to help bring this change to life and to bring more people locally and from abroad to our downtown. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McKnight. Is there any other councillor that wishes to be recognized on this item? We'll go to Councillor Newbeeser.
I just wanted to thank Councillor McKnight and everybody who co-sponsored it. I'm glad that it was...
I'm sorry, Councillor Newbeeser. Your microphone seems to be a little quieter than others today. If you could pull it closer.
I've got to, talk closer to it. Thank you for the reminder. I just want to thank Councillor McKnight and everybody. I think it's good that this is bipartisan. I do want to be clear because I thought this was a fun, good faith gesture, and I got multiple emails already about it. We are not renaming Church Street legally. It's not changing mail. This is a show of good faith and ceremonial and marketing, for lack of a better term. So do I know if it'll solve the tourism problem? No, but I think, like you said, I do want to be sending the message that we don't support the administration in this city, certainly on this council, and I also want to get back to feeling good about going to Montreal for the spas up there. So I appreciate the work on this, and yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newbeeser. Councillor Bergman?
Thanks. I actually don't see this as lighthearted. I see it as pretty serious. I've spoken about fascism before from here. And let me just be clear, and I think that we are in agreement. Xenophobia has no place in a great country And if this country is great, then we need to reject in every single possible way the xenophobia that is coming from the president, coming from Stephen Miller, and coming from all the people that just are just butchers of the English language. The other thing about this is that this is not just a message to our Canadian friends, but it's, in my mind, a message to Customs and Border Patrol. Because, you know, you got to go across the border. And this message tells those folks that Americans, that Vermonters need Canadian business, and that we need Canadian visitors, and that these agents who patrol and are ostensibly meant to keep us safe are people who live in Vermont or in New York State, and they need this business to be able to live in communities that they can afford, that their kids can go to, that they can go to healthcare and go down the list. So I thank you for bringing this up. There are times that we need to make statements that we are unable to do more than just put ourselves on the right side of history. I have argued that on the losing side, and I'm happy that I am going to be arguing that on the winning side for a change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bergman. Councillor Litwin, I saw you, Mayor. I think we'll go to councillors first and then turn to you, if that's okay. So we'll go to Councillor Litwin, and then Councillor Grant, and then Councillor Carpenter. Councillor
Thank
Litwin.
you. I don't have any prepared remarks, although Councillor Bergman was just very inspiring and moving. So thank you for your comments. I stand with you in those comments. I want to thank Councillor McKnight, particularly when she brought this up, I feel like months ago. I got overly excited about all the possibilities. And so I just want to thank how much work has gone into this and effort. And this is just the beginning, I think, of reminding Americans of our values, of showcasing the values of Vermonters. And there was one little whereas clause that I really wanted to read out for the benefit of so many Vermonters, which is, the people of Vermont wish to acknowledge our long-standing cultural and linguistic ties with the people of Quebec. Oops, my mic keeps going out. And that Vermont remains one of only 2 states where French is the second most spoken language after English, Louisiana being the other. We have a long shared history and connection with Quebec and Canada, and that does not have to stop because of this terrible regime that is currently running in Washington. So I really, to my constituents who reached out to me, with both positive and some concerns, I want to say your concerns are valid. We are not changing Church Street permanently, but this also, I recognize that there are serious problems facing our downtown, and we are continuing to address those. This is just one way, and hopefully Secretary Pichek helped folks really connect the dots here about how much Vermont, and particularly Burlington, depends on Canadian tourism. And this, make no mistake that this is a calculated attack by the Trump administration against blue states, northern states, and to further divide us. So I just want to thank you, and I will continue to go to Canada. I will continue to go to Montreal, and I appreciate all the work that has gone into this by the mayor as well in her important trip with Secretary Pichek, which I think really nicely springboarded us to be able to do something like this. So hopefully we'll see more opportunities for art and music exchange, and to remind our Quebecois neighbors to the north that we stand with them, and we denounce the behavior of our federal administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Litwin. We'll go to Councillor Grant and then Carpenter.
Okay, here we go. I'm not listed as a sponsor, and that was intentional. I have talked a lot about resolutions that when I take a look at what's happening in the district that I represent, have been performative and not really address the core issues of what is going on and what we need done to make things better. I will vote for it because I believe any expenditures in social media to bring attention to our city is important. I would like it to be more of a citywide view. I feel sometimes I'm not discounting the businesses on Church Street by any means. I'm just continuing to say when we do things that improve the Central District overall, that's going to help all the businesses in the Central District. The resolution doesn't have details on the types of marketing that will be done. I hope we, as a council, we will be able to be shown what is in mind. If we have events downtown to do this temporary renaming, we are more likely to get local visitors and maybe visitors outside of Burlington, and we should be marketing as such. We cannot take lightly the refusal of our northern neighbors who don't want to risk coming here. And as a person of color, I completely understand that risk, and I would never say to anyone in our Canadian neighbors that they should risk coming here because we quite frankly don't know what can happen at the border. We hear story after story after story about people being taken, their families being taken. And I went across for a show and I got back over fine. I have my passport, I'm born in this country, but we can't guarantee the safety of our Canadian neighbors, and they know that. That's a very real thing. I would like us to really be focusing any type of social media, online advertising, digital targeting to people throughout the state in terms of, hey, this is a great day vacation or 2-day vacation. I met a wonderful couple that was visiting from Boston this weekend. We need to be directing advertising toward Boston, Portland, and other cities that we already know their residents like to come to Burlington, and we need to remind them that we're here. So I hope that that is also part of the initiatives. I haven't heard anything that we're doing that type of targeted digital advertising. I'm afraid I find this to be performative, and that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Councilor Carpenter?
Thanks. I don't want to repeat what some of my colleagues have said, and I appreciate our need to make sure that our Canadian neighbors know that we, at least we at this table in Burlington, are as distressed about our federal government more than they are. I hope publicity like the number of people that we had at the No Kings event gets out there. We need to spread that kind of word. But I think this is just a really wonderful gesture, and that's what it's intended to do. There's many more things that we could do, but we have such a tie to Quebec, and we need to celebrate that. I've been around a long time. I've been in human services, and I remember when we always had to have a French-speaking person on staff because we had so many French Canadians in the services we were serving with the Office on Aging, in our housing, our alphabetized paper drawers with the French names would be, as we used to call it, the B drawer, had lots of French names in it. And people don't see that as much now, and we've so wonderfully broadened our diversity, but there is such a long tie that we need to remind ourselves of how many people are living still in Burlington of French-Canadian descent. So I congratulate us, Councillor McKnight, for initiating this, Treasurer Pichak, and we should just celebrate this and continue letting our neighbors know we're not happy, but we welcome you to come.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carpenter. Are there any other councillors that wish to be recognized on this item? Yep, Councillor Newbeezer.
I apologize. I meant to and I didn't. I just wanted to thank the mayor for her work on this topic, and because I know there's multiple things the city are doing in this vein, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a good segue, Councillor Newbeezer. The mayor had asked to be recognized, so Mayor, we'll go to you.
I like a good introduction. Thank you very much, Councilor President Travers. I just wanted to highlight, I said this back in May when I went to Montreal for an event that was actually organized by many Vermonters from across the state. It was a grassroots effort that the state treasurer and I happened to be invited to, and we were pleased to go to represent our state. It really made quite an impact, and we continue in my office to get feedback, positive feedback from Canadians who saw the media coverage on our trip to Vermont. Even today, when I went to get lunch at City Market, 2 people who were from Montreal stopped me and said, "Are you the mayor?" Which happens a lot anyway, but like, "Are you the mayor?" And I thought I was gonna get feedback on something, which is fine. But instead they said very delightfully, "We're from Montreal. We saw you on CBC or wherever it was even a month plus ago. And we came here and specifically picked Burlington to meet our daughter who works here in the States. And really appreciate it. And it was just such a positive engagement. So this type of stuff does have an impact because relationships are so important. And I think it's an important piece to remember around, we can take charge of some things in these really dark and difficult times, and it takes us working together. So I appreciate that this is a bipartisan support resolution. Appreciate that there's, in this council in particular, there are many paths up the mountain, as I often said when I was an organizer, of how to get there. And when we can all push in the same direction, that's to the benefit of some of these much larger issues. And I hope that we can perhaps even inspire other cities and towns in Vermont to do something similar. I mention that because 7 out of the 8 mayors in the Mayor's Coalition, Virgin's mayor has not participated for some reason. I'm not sure. I'm not saying he doesn't support that. But 7 of us have talked about this multiple times now around how to continue to do efforts like we did, the state treasurer and I did in Montreal. I was able to express on behalf of those 6 other mayors their support of the remarks I shared in Canada. It's impacting Newport. It's impacting Montpelier. It's impacting all of us. So this type of stuff is being seen in north of the border. I also just want to say that, of course, to many councilors' comments, we are in very serious times. We're in serious times where I take the comments, especially at public comment, because it's not the first time I've heard about the airport comment. There's additional things we have to stay diligent on to make sure that, again, things within our control or within our influence at that matter can be leveraged in a way that continues to make sure our communities are safe and inclusive for folks who are here who may not be documented, but more importantly, that we continue to find ways to resist what is happening on the federal level. That is what Burlington what Burlingtonians, I think, most expect, and I also hope that we can send and model that for the rest of the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I believe you will have the last word on this item, and we will now go to a vote on the motion brought by Councillor McKnight. All in favor, please say aye.
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 We. Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Thank you to Treasurer Pichak, and thank you, Mayor, as well, for your efforts and the work of your office. Yeah,
Where's
okay.
town meeting TV?
All right. More Canadian flags to come. So the next item on our agenda is item 8.2, a resolution on impact fees. At our last council meeting, we had passed an amendment to our ordinance that puts impact fees in administrative regulation. We postponed the motion on the resolution, putting those administrative regulations into place. And so this is the postponed item on the administrative regulations around impact fees. Councillor Bergman, this is an item that came through the Ordinance Committee. And as chair of the Ordinance Committee, I would welcome a motion from you on waiving the reading and adopting the resolution. I will also note that after a motion is made, I will be passing the gavel on this item to Councillor McKnight as there's an amendment, a little amendment that I had proposed here that I would like to present. But Councillor Bergman, could we start by getting a motion from you?
So I'll ask to waive the reading and adopt the resolution. And because this actually went to the Board of Finance, I believe, in terms of the details of that, I will end there.
Thank you, Councillor Bergman. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. And then Councillor Bergman, did you want the floor back upon a second? Okay, so I would pass the gavel to President McKnight and would ask to be recognized on the item, if that's in order. Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Travers.
Thank you, President McKnight. On this item, I want to begin by thanking the hard work that has gone into this by the mayor's administration and staff. I do know that this is a process that started with the last administration as well, reviewing at first very closely whether or not our current impact fee allocation should be consolidated to specific departments, and then ultimately getting the recommendations that are now before us, both around consolidating the fees and proposed increases to those fees in these administrative regulations. We've had a number of work sessions around the item, and ultimately I will be voting in favor of this resolution, but just wanted to make a couple comments on it. The first is, I believe that everyone on this council, and the mayor's office included, believes that housing and the need for a lot more of it here in Burlington is of the utmost importance, and I greatly appreciate the mayor making it one of her administration's top priorities here, and we have been working on that, and I trust we will continue to be working on it as we move forward here, both housing as well as affordable housing. And so with that, I trust that no one on this council would take action that in any way impedes the development of housing and affordable housing. That said, I do want us to be careful about monitoring these increased impact fees moving forward, because I remain concerned about potential unintended consequences. And I'll lay out those potential unintended consequences as threefold. One is, I remain concerned that any increase to the cost of development here in Burlington, as compared to our surrounding communities in particular, potentially disincentivizes developers from choosing Burlington over surrounding communities. I appreciate the information that we've been provided about the fact that the development fees, the impacting fees as we're increasing them, are close to being in alignment with South Burlington, for example. But I'm mindful that the impact fees are just one part of owning property in a community. Property taxes here in Burlington as compared to South Burlington are different. Impact fees are a one-time cost. Property taxes are compounding costs, and these are all considerations that developers make in deciding where they're going to develop and where they're going to develop housing. And I want to be very careful that we're not disincentivizing that here in Burlington as compared to other communities. My other concern is around affordable housing in particular. Especially for multi-unit housing, these impact fees can reach really high values. I am concerned about the extent to which these fees will be pass-through costs to renters and to future homeowners. And I do think that we need to be monitoring that and very mindful about the fact that we're not negatively impacting the issue of affordability by increasing impact fees that developers ultimately pass through to renters and to homeowners. My third concern is, whereas I understand the interest in consolidating the fees into other categories, it is nonetheless taking monies away from some categories that they've been available to in the past, like our parks, like our fire department, like our police department. I know that over the past 10 years, when we received presentations on this, the average impact fees that we collected in any given year were about $350,000 or so. But I'm mindful of the fact that at least half of those years were during the pandemic, when a lot of housing development basically ground to a halt. I know that we are encouraging significantly more development here in the coming years, where that $350,000 number could, in my opinion, exceed or get close to 7 figures and be a much more impactful number, pun not necessarily intended, but a much more impactful number for these categories that it's been available to in the past. And so I think that moving forward, we do need to be watching whether or not monies that historically have been available to these areas in consolidating it to other areas is taking capital funds away from those important areas. So 2 notes here with the 20 seconds that I have left here, Councilor McKnight, yeah. One note is that I do hope that in the coming months and year that the council will, that the administration will report back on the impact fees that we're collecting and the costs that they're going to. And then on the other area, I would like to move to amend, it's a small amendment to the administrative regulations, President McKnight, which is item 8.6. I would move to amend.
Just wanted to make sure you saw that your 5 minutes.
I understand that.
You can't resist.
But
One
so
sentence, please.
I would move to amend item 8.6. There's an amendment that was posted and circulated a couple weeks ago, but it remains on the agenda now. That item 8.6 would now be read to read, nothing shall prevent the City Council from lowering impact fees or varying impact fee procedures through agreement between the city and an applicant. The City Council's authority under this section extends to, but is by no means limited to, circumstances where an applicant's land development includes capital improvements that impact fees would otherwise fund. So that is my motion to amend section 8.6 of the administrative regulations.
Thank you, Councillor Travers. Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Barlow. Any discussion?
I would just very briefly say, President McKnight, on the amendment now, that the reason why I am moving to amend this is that I do think that for the concerns that I relayed earlier, that it's important that this council, through development agreement, have the authority, and I appreciate that this has been included in the administrative regulations already, to vary the impact fees. The substantive part of this amendment is that the council's authority would be limited to being able to lower impact fees. And I do think that it's important that developers, as they're considering whether or not to grow here in Burlington, be able to rely on the certainty of the fees that are in our administrative regulations. We could certainly amend those administrative regulations to increase the fees, but if we're changing fees on a project-by-project basis, I don't think the City Council should have the authority to increase those fees on a particular project, which is why I'm proposing that the amendment would limit the council's varying authority to lowering these fees.
Thank you. I saw Councillor Bergman's hand.
Yeah. I mean, I support this amendment because we've got regulations that make sense. And to the extent to which we need to vary them by agreement, makes perfect sense to do that. We should have a robust conversation about raising them. So, I mean, it's all there in terms of the amendment. And just in terms of, I was not anticipating that Councillor Travers was going to give his 5 minutes on the underlying and then proceed after the time to then offer his amendment. So let me just say that we have set up the framework by which we can look at these on a more robust than 5-year basis. We can base it like we have to by law and like we should by good practice on studies. This is what Ashley has told us now time and time and time again, 3 work sessions on this. We can, in response to both the comments by Councillor Travers and also by former Councillor Busher, we will have the opportunity, if we have eligible projects, to be able to reevaluate the whole thing and proceed to look at schools and police and fire like we do now, but the fact of the matter is we have not had eligible projects. So this review is long overdue, and this adoption is absolutely essential. There is no, based on the evidence, no competitive disadvantage to Burlington doing this, either in the fees or, I think, otherwise. We have got differences in our municipality based on the density that we've got. And that's just true because it's cheaper to, pave over fields, right? So we've got those and we have to be conscious about that. But otherwise, new development and the costs of development are borne by somebody, these public costs. And in my mind, they should be borne by the developers, and to the extent to which we are being clear about the trade-off with affordable housing, we have done that, and we are doing that. And if we need to adjust it, we can do it again. So I hope that the amendment passes, and I hope that the underlying passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bergman. Any other discussion on this? I see Councillor Barlow and Carpenter.
I'll be supporting the amendment. I think it's an important one to recognize that often in development agreements we ask the developer to build public infrastructure. And if they're building the public infrastructure that we ask them to build, they shouldn't be subject to additional fees for building that. So I'll be supporting the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Councillor Carpenter?
Thanks. I don't want to repeat what particularly Councillor Bergman said. I think this is a good package, and I think this amendment makes perfect sense. We want the developers to build public infrastructure that benefits us, so we want to incent them to do that and not just move away from that. And I just think it's so important to remind ourselves impact fees are intended to be towards capital costs, not operating costs, of the thing the development is impacting. And people talk about schools a lot, and we have a brand new school. I went to high school with a graduating class at Burlington High School of 500 people. The mayor just mentioned 200. We're not growing our schools, but we are certainly growing our sewer debt because we have an old system. So it's just important for people to understand what an impact fee is. And if we add more development to our sewer system, that's where the impact is. It's probably not at the high school. So thank you for the work on this.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, with that, we will go to a vote on, sorry. Councillor Newbeezer?
I apologize. I don't mean to take up more time, but I did just want to echo what Councillor Carpenter said. I am a big believer in impact fees. I'm a big believer that we need to increase them as we've done with this in recent times. And I just want to say it's not asking more. I just want to hit this point home. It's not asking more of developers. It's asking capital to pay for its impact. And I think that we've are so far away from that in this country. We don't expect private companies to think about their long-term impact, whether it's a piece of plastic you use once and is here for all eternity, or whatever it may be. And this is part of that work. So I am very supportive. We need it. I'm glad we're doing it. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
So a point of order. I believe that as the maker of the motion and the second, and also the second.
1 second. You have to be recognized.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Did you want to speak, or did you have a point of order?
I have a point of order.
Okay, go ahead.
And the point of order is that I believe that as the maker of the motion, who has supported the amendment, and I believe the seconder of it has also spoken in favor of the amendment, that we could consider these to be friendly and therefore do not have to waste our time voting on it, and could just vote on the motion as amended.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. That sounds right to me in my extensive experience as the City Council President. I will go to a voice vote on this topic. All in favor of the amended resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's unanimous, and the motion, oh, any opposed? No. Okay. That is unanimous, and the motion carries. Do I just give this back?
I guess so. Ceremonial passing. All right, thank you, Councilor McKnight. I appreciate that. I will note, Ashley Parker, I see you online as well, and appreciate all the work that you put into this, and so thank you for being here as well this evening.
Thank you all.
That now takes us to item 8.3, which is a public hearing regarding the setting of common area fees for FY26. After this, we'll turn to item 8.4, a resolution on the allocation method and standards for common area fees and the establishment of common area fees for the Church Street Marketplace for fiscal year 2026. But first, we turn to the public hearing, and so we will open the public hearing on this item at 9:15 p.m. And I will first ask whether or not there's anyone here in City Hall that wishes to speak on the public hearing regarding setting common area fees for FY26. Is there anyone online that wishes to speak to the setting of common area fees for FY26? If yes, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. All right, I see no one online or here in City Hall, but we'll ask one more time if there's anyone online or here in City Hall that wishes to participate in this public hearing. All right, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing at 9:16 p.m. and now turn to item 8.4, the resolution on the common area fees. And for the recommended action on this item, I turn to Councillor Singh.
I recommend we waive the reading and adopt the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Schachter. Councillor Singh, did you want the floor back on this item?
No.
Okay.
Good.
Is there any councillor that wishes to be recognized on item 8.4? And I will note that we're joined by our CEDO Director, Carl Naswawi, and our Church Street Marketplace Director, Samantha McGinnis. I'm assuming you're all set, unless folks have questions? Okay, thank you for being here. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the council? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a vote on this resolution. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. We now have a number of entertainment permits and license applications, starting with item 8.5. And Councilor Broderick, again, as chair of our license committee, could I turn to you for an item on 8.5? A motion on item 8.5.
I move to approve the 2025-2026 outdoor entertainment permit application for August 1st, 61 Main Street with all standard conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Any discussion on this? We'll go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Councilor Broderick, may I turn to you for a motion on item 8.6?
I move to approve the 2025-2026 tobacco license application for Bangkok Bistro in the Alley. There's no address, but I believe that is 36 Thorson Way.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Item 8.7, please, Councilor Broderick.
I move to approve the 2025-2026 tobacco license and tobacco substitute endorsement license applications for Citizen Cider.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Any discussion on this motion? Councilor Litwin.
I actually just have a question that maybe the chair could answer or somebody on that commission. I'm just confused why Citizen Cider needs a new tobacco and tobacco substitute endorsement. Like, what products are they selling that would require this?
Let me first ask, is there anyone from the applicant here or online? Okay. Councilor Broderick, I don't know if you necessarily have the answer at top of mind here. I do recall at the License Committee that the applicant was not there. But I'll pose Councilor Litwin's question back to you if you have a response. Or I think we have a phone a friend with Councilor Schachter here as well. Okay, great. Councilor Schachter?
If my memory serves me, and this was our speculation because they were not present, but our understanding as they're moving location is that there may be hookah options available on the premises. Okay. Am I remembering?
That's correct.
Okay, well, I guess as just with the remainder of my time, which I will see the rest of as soon as I'm done with my statement, I want to draw attention to this kind of growing trend of, which I think might be the case for Bangkok Bistro in the Alley as well. I started to have that same question, is this merging of alcohol service and smoking and the public dangers and issues there, and particularly hookah service, which has much more nicotine and health impact than even cigarettes do traditionally. So I would like us to, I mean, this is the first, I'm flagging this for myself, but this is the first time I'm seeing this. I think our Board of Health might want to make note of this as well. And I intend to just sort of explore this a little further of this expansion of hookah service in Burlington. Thanks. And I'll be voting no.
Thank you, Councilor Litwin. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this motion? Councilor Newbeezer.
I'll just say briefly, because I think it's a fair point from Councilor Litwin, though I don't agree, ironically, the sober guy and former smoker, just tend to be a civil libertarian, I guess, in that sense. And I also think businesses are struggling, and as much as we are going to do our best to support them, to draw tourism back, it is not going to come back for the foreseeable future, and small business owners in particular need to branch out and rethink what their plans were. And so if there are, we should highly tax any substance, but we should also allow small businesses to survive in our community, and also allow folks to make whatever decision they'd like to make. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this item? All right, seeing none, we will go to a vote, and as Councilor Kane is joining us online, and I'm anticipating a divided vote on this item, open meeting law requires that we do a roll call vote, and so I would ask the clerk to please call the roll on this item.
Councilor Barlow?
Yes.
Councilor Bergman?
Yeah.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Carpenter?
Yes.
Councilor Grant?
Yes.
Councilor Kane?
Yes.
Councilor Litwin?
No.
Councilor McKnight?
Yes.
Councilor Newbeezer?
Yes.
Councilor Schachter? Yes. Councilor Singh?
Yes.
City Council President Travers?
Yes.
11 ayes, 1 nay.
So with 11 yeses and 1 no, item 8.7 passes. Thank you. We now turn to item 8.8. This is the first reading of an ordinance regarding water resources affordability rate setting. And the proposed action on civic clerk would send this ordinance to the TOOC. I know that we have DPW Director Chapin Spencer, as well as Water Division Director Megan Moyer here this evening. I'm anticipating it's a two-part motion here from Councilor Barlow as chair of the TOOC, but wondering, Director Moyer or Director Spencer, if you by chance could set the table, so to speak, with respect to the motion to be made by Councilor Barlow. I know that we discussed it briefly at Board of Finance, but may be helpful here as well.
Chapin, do you want to introduce or?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Division Director Moyer. We're pleased to be here tonight to do the first reading of the affordability ordinance revisions and the policy development for water resources. One of the key pieces moving forward for us is being responsive to the council's interest to have this in place in time for bills for water used in FY26. So we are working very closely with Chair Barlow for the TUC on making sure that after tonight that we can get to the June TUC meeting and then come back for the July council meeting such that the expanded affordability program can be in place by the time that the August bills are put together for the July usage of water for the beginning of FY26. So I'm excited to work quickly with you all, and just earlier this evening I made sure that the TUC had the full language for the upcoming meeting so they have time to fully delve into this topic and hopefully move expeditiously. Division Director Moyer, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just the primary highlights to the sort of Affordability Program 2.0. We currently do have a number of affordability measures, but we've only been able to provide them to the customers that we bill directly. We are adding one small additional discount for those directly qualified customers in the form of a stormwater fee discount for income qualified or other qualified customers. And then the really big exciting thing is the new offering of indirect customer assistance through our sister utility at BED. We're able to partner with them and basically provide the equivalent of a credit that somebody might receive if they own their home or were in a single family duplex or triplex with a singly metered situation. But we're able to give that money to Burlington Electric, who's then going to pass it down to the people who are renters, who we know ultimately are going to be impacted by the increase in rates via their rents increasing. So pretty excited. We think maybe only one other community in the country is doing that, Seattle Public Utilities, which we learned a lot from. So we're really excited to certainly be on the leading cusp of trying to get people help on this important service.
BED has been a great partner and we appreciate all their support.
All right. Thank you, Director Spencer and Division Director Moyer. Councilor Barlow, as chair of the TUC, could I turn to you for I think a two-part. Well, no, I think of the first one we need to suspend our rules, perhaps. I don't know. Let's go to you for motion one. How does that sound?
I will move to waive and approve the first reading of the proposed ordinance regarding water resources affordability enhancements and to suspend the rules to refer the ordinance to the Transportation, Utilities, and Energy Committee in lieu of the Ordinance Committee.
Okay. And can I just ask you, Councilor Barlow, there's actually two recommended actions here. Is the second one necessary given the first action here?
I am unclear on that.
Okay. I'm just noting that the second recommended action is to refer the proposed policy regarding water resources affordability enhancements to the TUC, but I do think that that is captured in the motion you just made as motion.
The first part of the motion.
The ordinance refers to the policy as a separate document. So I don't, it was reviewed by the city attorney, but there's two documents. The meat of what's happening is in the policy, and the ordinance changes are doing some sort of cleaning up to make it so that it always just refers to the policy, so that when we need to make changes with you all, we can come back with the policy to change instead of always having to change the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So under our rules, an amended ordinance would have to go to the Ordinance Committee, and so Councilor Barlow has moved to suspend our rules for the amended ordinance itself to head off to the TUC. So I think that that would make sense as a standalone motion. And then once we deal with that motion, we would turn to motion 2 regarding the enhancement document itself. So thank you, Councilor Barlow, on the motion to suspend the rules and to refer the amended ordinance to the TUC. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Councilor Barlow, did you want the floor back on this?
Only briefly to say thank you to DPW for all their work on this. I look forward to having it at the TUC.
Thank you. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this item? Councilor Bergman.
Just briefly to say that this has been in front of the TUC, and since 2 of the members of the Ordinance Committee are also on the TUC, it makes perfect sense to me as the chair of the Ordinance Committee to do it this way.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Councilor Newbeezer?
I just want to note quickly how incredibly grateful I am to BED and to Water Resources and DPW at large. You all are clearly, with whatever gripes I may have here and there, really leading the country around affordability programs. And I think it's now more important than ever that we're doing everything we can for folks who are working class, middle income, young families, folks who are described seniors on fixed income, et cetera. So I really do appreciate that work and hope to see you continue. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized? Yep, Councilor Schechter.
Thank you, Council President Travers. I just want to echo Councilor Newbeezer's remarks. Sincere gratitude for the work that's gone into this, for prioritizing affordability programs in the way that you all are. And this kind of cross-departmental collaboration is really fantastic to see. And I love hearing that we only know of one other city in the country working in this way, and that we really are a national model in so many ways for what's possible. So I just want to express my gratitude and my excitement to be helping move this forward tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Schechter. Does any other councilor wish to be recognized on this item? All right, we will go to a vote then on the motion to suspend the rules and send the amended ordinance to the TUC. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. And then, Councilor Barlow, can I turn to you for motion 2?
Certainly. I move to refer the proposed policy regarding water resources affordability enhancements to the Transportation, Energy, and Utility Committees.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Councilor Barlow, did you want the floor back on this one?
I do not.
All right. Does any other councilor wish to be recognized on this motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Spencer. Thank you, Division Director Moyer, for being here this evening.
Thank you.
There is one additional deliberative item here, which is 8.9, the FY26 budget memo update, and it's only 9:32 p.m. So, Mayor, you have 58 minutes if you want to use them all.
We can have nice things if we work together.
So there is no action item on this. This is an update from you, Mayor, and the Chief Administrative Officer. I see we have the City Assessor, Joe Turner, here as well. And Mayor would be happy to turn the floor to you.
Thank you very much. So we are, and I've asked the City Assessor to sit next to me. The City Attorney is still here. She's just yielding her chair to move to the back table. I'm going to begin this presentation first, and there is an accompanying memo on Civic Clerk that I encourage folks who are watching, as well as counselors, to reference not only tonight, but in the coming days as you might have questions as to this issue. So there's actually 3 items I want to call your attention to, because I'm recommending budget revisions to the budget we presented to you on June 2nd. And the biggest and primary reason is because we discovered an error that was made around an overestimation of our tax revenue associated with a commercial property in the city of Burlington to the amount of $1.8 million. This error is something that the city assessor and the CIO will explain in more detail, but essentially this is an issue that, for a very simple high level, caused a double count of $1.8 million, which required us to quickly assess how we could fill an additional hole that we did not anticipate. just want to emphasize that I appreciate my team coming forward when they discovered this error. This is an expectation I have as the mayor, to make sure that folks feel that they that it is encouraged in this administration for transparency, and with the deeper and more important reason of making sure we improve our processes and systems so that future mayors, future city councils, future people who hold the roles of any role in the city, especially leadership, have things well documented, have policies and procedures in place that protect against this in the future. You've heard me talk about before, we have a very complicated budgeting process that my hope, while I'm mayor here, to untangle and make more streamlined and clear and understandable, frankly, not only for decision makers, but for members of the public. So this is right in line with what my expectation is of my team, is again, if we discover an error, this helps us do this budgeting process better. So again, we'll come back to the 1.8 and how we discover that error and what that means exactly for folks. But to the two other points, and then I'm going to explain how we solve the 1.8 issue. The two other smaller revisions, but are important to bring your attention to, that are different than my recommended budget on June 2nd. One relates to our regional programs budget, which you've heard a lot of feedback from the community. This has been a budget I've been attempting over my first year to make more consistent in its practice, but this has been a very hard budgeting year, so we made a lot of decisions that prioritize core services for the city and made sure that we were we scrutinized, as hard as it was, our limited ability to extend in a granting capacity resources to community partners. There was no easy decision about any of those recommendations we gave to you. But one was, we realized that was incorrectly listed in the regional budget, was listed as the Visiting Nurses Association, but it was not the VNA. It was actually the UVM Home Health and Hospice that was the receiver of that line item. Once we discover that, we're remedying that by suggesting not the full amount from last year, but recommending that we put $100,000 back into the regional programs to support the critical work that they do, having realized that many communities donate or give a portion of funds to help support the services of health and hospice within their communities. So we would like to propose reestablishing some of that in the regional programs budget. The other small thing, though important, is that I received a proposal from Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront to revamp the adult programming services that we provide, or programming that we provide under that department. This would include senior programming. I just want to name that this proposal came to me very late in the game in terms of our budgeting work. But after looking at it more closely, and there's going to be further review of this before June 30th, I'm confident, at least at this point, that I can recommend to you that we have enough of a revenue and a plan to cover one FTE, to bring one of those laid-off positions back into the budget for fiscal year 26. I just want to remind folks, these positions were set to sunset at the end of September as part of our solving for our $8 million budget gap a couple weeks ago. But this gives me confidence in this proposal that we can reestablish a position, that we can do smarter programming that also looks at revenue sourcing, because user fees are important to sustain these programs, but also that the programming is meaningful, that it's responsive to the Aging Council's recommendations to the city from a couple months ago, and that we do stronger partnerships with our community partners in ways that really level up the work that we're able to provide for all adults, but specifically seniors. I imagine that will be welcomed by the council, but I just want to affirm for you that we have enough, based on what I've seen, for one position for next year, and in the outer years, in years 2 and 3, perhaps even bringing in a little bit more revenue to continue to sustain this work. Just to clarify, this would not be reestablishing the core program at the Old North End Community Center. We would use the Miller Center, but this is part of the proposal that the department has brought forward that I am now recommending. But back to the $1.8 million error, I want to, before I just briefly highlight the solutions that are in this memo, I want to emphasize for folks watching at home that one of the issues that was most important to me that we not lose track of was making sure that the solutions we came up with continue to prioritize affordability for residents in Burlington. That has been a priority since I've been mayor. It's a real deep commitment I had in building fiscal year 26 budget. And in these solutions, solutions, we did have to use a little bit more of a municipal tax on two splinter taxes that the council, and then with the mayor signing the budget, is allowed to increase. We increased the $35 $35 a year, a number from 35 to 100 for the year on a house that is home valued at $500,000. I capped it at 100 because I really wanted to keep that commitment to affordability. If that is combined with the anticipated education property tax decrease that the school district is expecting for most residents in fiscal year 26, that math means that most residents will see a net decrease in their property taxes next year, a net decrease for most people in Burlington. I'm saying that slowly because this was after a lot of very difficult and hard work to right-size the city's side of the property tax bill and truly start to put pieces in place around moving us to a more affordable place, a more sustainable place fiscally. And that's how we start to do that, by making tough decisions about what we can afford to keep doing and right-sizing the size of government that has grown over the last several years. On a high level, I'm not going to go to every point in the solutions, but it was important that we look at additional revenues, so we did not have to solve for that $1.8 million issue, all from a tax on residents. We proposed several different solutions. One of the most important things about several solutions is it diversifies our scenario so that we're not over-reliant on any one issue. And given how uncertain many things are around the local economy of Burlington, this is the smart way to go forward in solving any sizable challenge, at least fiscally. So the first thing I just want to call your attention to is in these proposals we did put forward new reductions beyond what we presented to you on June 2nd. The first one is important to me. When I realized that we had an error in the budget after presenting to you, I feel it is very important that the leader of the city, which is myself as the mayor, take a leadership role here and offer to not take a COLA increase, so no salary increase for myself next year for the entire year. That would be a 0% COLA for me as the mayor. I'm also going to ask my department heads to take a reduction in the COLA until mid-year for 6 months to reduce their COLA as the leadership team for the city of Burlington. That is not an easy thing to ask of my team. They work incredibly hard. They are very dedicated to the city and are an amazing team that really puts their best professional effort forward. And I appreciate their understanding that this is a moment for us to share the burden of getting this right for the city. And I am proposing, though, that they get restored their full COLA 6 months into the budget. So there would be a little bit of savings towards this solution, towards the 1.8, but that they get restored in Q3 of the fiscal year, unlike myself, that would remain at 0 for the remainder of the upcoming fiscal year. We're going to pause a couple hirings that you can see in the memo until later in the year for savings there. This proposal at this point also includes a reduction from 10 to 8 for new sworn officers in the Burlington Police Department budget. The reason there largely is a recommendation from Chief Burke. Based on the current applicants for the fall, basically, we are capped as a city to send only 4 new recruits to the police academy in Vermont any particular session. There's 2 sessions a year. We only have 2 qualified candidates for new recruits. We don't have 4. So to budget for 10 would be something that would not necessarily be necessary. I look forward to your feedback on that as we continue to work on the budget before June 30th. And then I've mentioned the home health and hospice. Again, I'm not going to do every single line item. I'm happy to answer questions as we get to that. On the revenue side, beyond the increasing slightly of parks and highway, which will increase our revenues on that line by $831,000, there is a new bill that went through successfully in the legislature. And I want to thank the communities that were impacted so dramatically by the floods, because it was due to their advocacy that this actually changed in the State House. But for communities that have a local option sales tax, the state has, based on prior statute, taken 30% of that as the state, and only 70% of that is advanced back to local communities. Due to the advocacy of those flood-impacted communities, the law has now changed where we will now receive 75% of that rather than 70%. That should yield about $150,000 more in revenue we're anticipating based on our local option. We are increasing our franchise fee, which is a fee that's related to the usage of electricity and the usage of water. That is based on the budgeted amounts that both Water Resources and BED have anticipated their own budgets to be built upon. So we were using a more conservative franchise fee in our June 2nd assumption. We went back and we realized we can increase that amount, and that's to the increase of $275,000. There's increased revenue sources within some of our accounting work we do within Clerk Treasurer's Office to about $450,000. If you have any questions on that, Catherine will have to answer that because I am not an accountant. And then a couple other just high-level ones. We are going to increase the fees on Uber and Lyft. This is currently a 25-cent charge on when people use Uber or Lyft. The airport collects this, but it goes to the general fund because it's a taxi licensing issue. We're proposing an increase of this by 25 cents. We're also anticipating development permits of anticipated large development in particular that would be about $250,000 for the city. This is again expected, but I want to emphasize on this one and another one on gross receipts. This is not tangible enough for me to rely that this is a real exact number. We don't have a permit in hand for this particular project quite yet. Things are looking good, but I did not want to over-rely, as I mentioned in my beginning of my remarks, on any one, especially larger item, for solving this problem. So the other one that I want to just call out before I wrap up here is around new gross receipts anticipated. As we know, City Place South Tower is opening in the matter of weeks. There is a hotel in that building that has about 170 rooms. We did a very conservative estimate of if that was if the rooms were half filled for a certain number of months, not even all the months of the next year, what would that possibly do to our gross receipts? That is a conservative number, but as we've talked about already tonight, nothing is guaranteed in terms of tourism and visitors. So between that number and the anticipated development permits figure, I wanted to make sure we were not banking on those two figures. That is why at the grand total of this table in the memo, you'll see the number we came up with between more savings due to reductions in our expenses and identifying a diverse set of revenues. The number we came up with is about $2.4 million. That is, again, higher than the 1.8 purposefully. The other piece I'll say as I wrap up here, because there's so much uncertainty on the federal level and international level for that level matter, and there is a need for us to continue to monitor the health of the unassigned fund balance. This seems like a very prudent and important set of solutions to advance, to incorporate in terms of revisions to the budget as I presented back on June 2nd. Finally, really finally, you'll see at the end of the memo that I have a number of steps I'll be taking with the CAO and the city assessor and their offices to create policies and procedures to outline this process of how we get our grand list figures to inform future budgets. We'll do a deeper review of this to make sure that we have the proper checks and balances going forward. We eliminated the line item that caused this confusion and double counting already. That literally doesn't even exist in our budgeting software anymore. And then finally, the piece that I think is going to be one of the most impactful elements of this is that we're moving the city assessor's office within the merger within Modern Gov into the Department of Finance Administration as of July 1. One of the many benefits of that will be that folks will be working within one mini organization, and I expect the coordination and collaboration across not only right now, which are two department heads, but their teams will be more integrated. So things like this, and probably maybe even more improvements to our processes, will become tighter and cleaner and clearer for folks as we move forward. So that is what I wanted to kick us off with. I'm going to pass it next to, I think, Joe Turner, our city assessor, to talk a little bit about how this all works in terms of the commercial tax assessment line that caused some of this, and a little bit of 101 on how we generate revenue for the city.
Sure, thank you. And Catherine will boot up I got a quick slideshow with about 4 slides to kind of explain what was going on and what goes on. It's relatively high level, but I think that's where we need to start. So I want to start with an overview of Burlington's municipal tax structure, just for some perspective. You have basically 3 buckets of revenue that equal the total revenue, your property tax revenue, other revenues, and non-tax revenues. Other revenues consist of pilots, franchise fees, development agreements, and things that are considered tax adjacent but not tax. You have your non-tax revenues, which are your user fees and things of that nature, which have little to nothing to do with tax. I also wanted to express real quick some definitions about what the grand list consists of. So the grand list itself is essentially what's known as assessed property value minus the property value associated with dedicated tax, and that's just TIF increment. We don't really want to get into that right now. That's something different. So it's the assessed value, and that's important. The definition of appraised values is fair market value. That's what we all think of as fair market. As of 2021, our last revaluation, that's if an appraiser goes to your house in 2021, that's the value you'd get. Assessed value, the definition of assessed value, and the important situation here is legally authorized fraction thereof. So, and I should have referenced that to the International Association of Assessing Officers. I forgot to put a reference in there. The value you tax on doesn't necessarily have to be your fair market value. And we do that here in Burlington. Per charter, we put a 20%, additional 20% on non-residential property. That additional 20% creates an assessed value, and the assessed value is essentially the grand list, right? So the additional 20% of value should be and should have been included in grand list value estimates before the rate gets set, right? We can go. I'm going to shoot through these and get questions. In previous budgets, not this one because we fixed it moving forward, but in previous budgets, that 20% was included in that other revenue bucket and not the actual total property tax revenue bucket where it should have been. And in the initial budget presentation on the second, that 20% was included in both buckets, and that's the double dip there. So it was included in the total property tax revenue as well as the other revenue. Again, for 26, we identified it, we removed the line item in other revenue because it shouldn't have been there, it should have been in total property tax revenue. And I'll show you a few other things. This graph, real quick, shows the gap in the issue. So you see in 2020, there's a separation in the accurate grand list, the GL's grand list, and that accurate grand list is including the 20% commercial, and the official grand list is what we set the rates on in previous years. The gap that you see created by those two lines is the 20% revenue. So that's how we found it. So that's a good look at it, the kind of when it really started to happen. And we got one more slide that I want to run through, and then we can go to questions. This is this year. This is what we presented as of June 2nd. The using the grand list with the 20% commercial is what we did and what we presented, and that gave the tax rate that was presented of 0.8395 for the municipal side. If we were to take that out, the tax rate would increase to 0.869. So that increase in tax rate represents that 1.8 million double dip. So that's what we're trying to relatively combat right now. The other numbers up there, I just wanted everyone to see the full numbers of the official grand list estimate. The 20% additional commercial is $202 million, and the grand list without that commercial is $5.7 billion. So that kind of sums up where the issue was. It was in the basically other revenue category and taking that 20% out of the grand list and applying it to the other revenue category. So happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Joe. And Catherine, do you have anything you want to add?
I do not think so. I think we could answer questions.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Assessor Turner and CIO Shad. Are there any counselors with questions or comments on this item?
I just want to make a point of order.
Yeah, Councilor Litwin.
I saw a slide that was not in the slide deck that's uploaded, and so I just, for the clerk's benefit, that should get sent. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That was a very last-minute addition. Lori has it. She hasn't had time to update it yet.
Okay, thank you for flagging that, Councilor Litwin. We'll go to you, Councilor Barlow.
And thank you, and thank you for the time you spent with Councilor Travers and I the other morning trying to help us understand this. And it is a little arcane. It took me like three explanations before I got it, but I'd like to try to distill it in a more simpler way, just for those who are listening online and might be confused. Is it a fact that prior to FY26, the 20% commercial addition to the tax rate was accounted for in a different line item as a standalone line item, and what we did this year is we incorporated it into the overall tax rates, but we didn't remove the standalone item, and that's how the double counting happened. And so now going forward, we're going to keep it incorporated into the overall tax rate, but we no longer have the standalone line item. So there's no chance going forward of us double counting this.
Correct.
Okay.
We completely removed that line item from the budget, so it does not exist anymore.
All right. Okay. So thank you. I just wanted to say that because it took me a while to get it, and I wanted to make sure anybody who's listening to us here at almost 10 this evening also has, a chance at understanding what happened.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. We'll go to Councilor Carpenter.
I now understand it too. I'm just curious, for planning, accounting, not taxing, do we keep track of how much revenue that 20% brings us? I would think that would be useful to understand, for instance, if we wanted to change it to 25% or 15%, understanding that number would be a useful piece of information.
We used to be able to track it one-to-one with that line item, but now what's going to happen is that number is going to get spread out all through the splinter taxes. So we can track it in a way, but it's not going to be a one-for-one.
Well, I am concerned about taxing, but we made a policy decision to increase the assessment for commercial properties, and that's fair. If we want to re-examine that policy decision, I think it will be important for us to understand how much revenue did that 20% raise for us if we want to look at it 5 years from now and just understand it. So will there be a way to effectively account for it? And perhaps, and not second guessing why we did this in the first place, perhaps that was a reason. It isn't necessary to have it show up on our grand list, but I think it will be necessary to know what that number is.
Yes, it will be possible. Right now, you could almost do that yourself because it was on a separate line item of the budget.
Yeah.
Now, you'll need to ask me and Joe, and that's fine. We can do it for you and report.
Well, I do think it's important to effectively keep track of how much does that 20% raise for us for some number of reasons, but I just think it's a number off the balance sheet that you should figure out a way to keep track of so we don't.
I'm also going to add that this is part of our city charter, the 120%
Yes.
of the commercial value of property. And it was started during Bernie's administration as mayor. So it's been, just so folks know, just educational to the folks watching at home, that we've had this for 40-plus years or so as a matter of city policy. Yeah.
And I'm supportive of it when we had it in the separate bucket, we could say we raised X millions of, and I just want us to know what that is.
Yes, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Councilor Bergman?
Thank you. And I want to say that I support continuing to have clarity and transparency about the tracking of the 120% or the 20%, as well as all of the other diverse taxes that we've got, because it is absolutely essential that we continue to have a diverse tax base, tax revenue system that is as progressive as possible. So my remarks are actually going to be related generally to the budget. So I first want to thank you, Mayor, for a budget that continues to emphasize affordability while avoiding austerity. And you know I've spoken against austerity for a while. It's essential to maximize the property tax relief created by the decrease in the school tax. And we're predominantly a renter city, and we know how high rents are. Tenants are getting priced out of the city. We know that housing values have exploded far beyond the incomes of most homeowners. This too is pushing people out of the city, since the non-school municipal taxes are linked to value and not to income. So if we're going to make Burlington more affordable, we need to minimize increases to the municipal property tax rates. And this budget does that, and I thank you, even as it invests in infrastructure and programs. But I'm really clear that this is not a budget without sacrifice. It raises municipal taxes on renters and homeowners that are not income sensitized, and it requires reductions in our workforce. So it's important to me that the sacrifice is shared, and unlike the federal government, the mayor is asking that sacrifices be made by those at the top of our government, deferring the COLAs, and you not taking a COLA for an entire year. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate your leadership based on compassion and equity in regard to that. This budget is also based on transparency and accountability and continued financial responsibility, which we all should be grateful for. Transparency and accountability require that these newly discovered mistakes be clearly shown, and they require that steps be taken so this doesn't happen again. And so thank you, Mayor, for doing those things. And this is why it's so important that you've created the Department of Financial Administration, so that we can eliminate the siloing that facilitates those mistakes. And let me sort of conclude on these things by saying thank you for continuing to be fiscally responsible. And that includes reviewing and adjusting and adding back adult programming and finding additional cuts that won't harm the functions of the community that we rely on, and includes finding additional revenues. And making conservative estimates. There are many new things that I believe we as a city need to spend money on to improve lives, to improve the vitality of the downtown, and to build community wealth broadly, but they cannot, in my estimation, be in this budget, because they will undermine affordability, at least this year. There are ideas out there that we should explore over the next year, and I believe this budget commits to doing that, like the program for seniors. But they should not be in this budget, because we have not found the money for them. There are other ideas that we should vet too, but they're not ready for this budget either. If the vetting process shows that they make sense and we can get the money to sustainably afford them, then I think we can and we should amend the budget as soon as possible. And if the proposed revenues come in over conservative estimates, then I think we can do the same. In this regard, let me end by saying we are at the beginning of the next year, not the end. So thank you, Mayor, for making this start as good as it can be, given all of the issues that we face. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bergman. Is there any other councillor that wishes to be recognized on this item? We'll go to Councillor Schechter. And then Councillor McKnight.
Thanks, Councillor or President Travers. I have a question. I don't know if it's possible to pull the slides back up, but I have a question about the one that I don't think is currently on Civic Clerk, but I know will be momentarily or shortly. The one with the two lines that shows kind of, at first they met, then they were separate, and then they're meeting again this year. And the clarifying question for both myself and hopefully it's helpful for the general public is the gap in the lines that started, it looked like in 2020, if I'm remembering correctly. It's not that we've been miscounting the revenues that whole time. It's just that we changed how they were coded and categorized then. And so for the last several years, there's been this discrepancy based on how they were put in different buckets, although this was the only year where the miscalculation happened. Or can you just clarify, like, is this a long-term issue that we're discovering now, or is this a one-time thing?
Sure. So you're right. That discrepancy that you see right there is due to the fact that the revenue collected was in a different line item. And that graph is just not looking at that line item. And we basically found that error and brought it back to where it needed to be this year. And you're right, the issue, the double counting issue was we basically had that 20% in the total tax property revenue and that other revenue, so we were double counting it in that. So we had the line item plus it was included in the grand list.
And that's just for this year, or this has been a long-term problem?
That's just for this year.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Councillor Schechter. Councillor McKnight.
Thank you, President Travers. And thank you for all this information and all this incredibly detailed, complex, and great work on the budget this season. I'm kind of still digesting what's in the mayor's memo, and I know we'll have more conversations and back and forth about that, but I did just want to say, well, I really appreciate and think that it's extremely admirable that, Mayor, you're offering to forego your COLA along with department heads. I cannot support that. I think it's really important, especially for our first female mayor, to get paid in accordance with the raises that we have set out and the procedures. I also think, we just saw an incredible presentation from some of our department heads around the water program and working innovatively in a way that only one other city in the country is doing. I feel like every week that goes by, I see the work of our department heads, and it's just more and more impressive, and they're doing more and more innovation. And we need to recognize that and keep rewarding that. And I think in the long run, again, it's an admirable effort, and it's appreciated. To save money, I think can end up costing us money because it keeps people from wanting to potentially seek reappointment. It's harder to hire for open roles, and it's just not good for morale. It's not the message that I wanted to send to our really talented group of department heads. So I would love to kind of keep talking about that and hopefully find another source to plug that gap. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKnight. Is there any other councillor with questions or feedback on this item at this point in time? Councillor Grant, and then we'll go to Councillor Newbeezer.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate some of the comments that Councilor Bergman said, specifically about the new Department of Finance and Administration, because I think this is going to be really important when we talk about all the individuals that were handling finance and accounting across the various departments in the city, bringing them all together, making sure that our finance practices are uniform, consistent, that workloads are balanced, and I believe that it will help with situations like this and also offer the clarity and additional transparency, and also address the structural gap that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Councillor Newbeezer.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Mayor, and folks presenting. I really appreciate the information. I've Gotta get weirdly close to this mic here. The reality today in our city, as many of us know, and as certainly many residents know, is that the vast majority of folks cannot afford to live in our city. 60% of our city rents, and of those folks who rent, 31% pay over half of their income on rent. The median sale price, as we've discussed through this budgeting process, of a home in Burlington is over $500,000, and wages in our state have not kept up with increases to the price of essentials like food and transportation. That is why it is so important to me that this budget prioritizes affordability. This will be the first time in many years that a residential property taxpayer in our city will see a decrease to their property tax bill. That is incredibly important because until we move away from our current regressive municipal property tax, which is work that this administration is engaged in, and that I am very grateful that we are engaged in, we have to be mindful of that. Many in our community are retired and on a fixed income, so they can't afford endless tax hikes. They need the stability to be able to retire with dignity. We want young families to live in our city, and not just young families, respectfully, from out of state with remote jobs who moved here during COVID, although I welcome them, but everybody, regardless of how much money you make and what your job may be. It's also important because, and I think this gets lost in the conversation, but if we want to keep rents from increasing, we do not have rent stabilization policies in place yet, and the vast majority of municipal property tax increases are, have been, and will be passed down directly to renters. The voters of Burlington asked us to work to decrease property taxes overall and pursue tax fairness reforms, and that is exactly what this administration is doing, and I will continue to try my best to support the administration in that work. This budget also stretches every dollar the city has and works to improve how city bureaucracy functions, and we've been forced to make some really hard choices. Even so, we are making critical investments in infrastructure, housing, affordability, and community safety. And unlike austerity, we are refocusing our capacity to meet today's challenges. I also appreciate, and I have to slightly disagree with a colleague here, I appreciate that the mayor is asking department heads to eliminate their 3% COLA for 6 months, and that the mayor will eliminate her COLA raise this year entirely. For me, it is incredibly important that in any year which our city experiences rifts, that financial burden is shared, and that means leadership refrains from taking any form of a raise. This is an important principle of fairness and one that is not the norm in many institutions in our state and our country, but one that ought to be the norm. One of the reasons I ran for council was because I was incredibly frustrated by public processes that didn't feel genuine and by mistakes being hidden from the public only to be talked about years later in a public records request or a lawsuit or a media story. That has changed in this city. If a misstep is made, it is promptly shared, serious policy considerations are put forward, review from the council, media, and community is encouraged, and actions are taken to ensure that mistake doesn't happen again. Does that mean city government is perfect and always gets it right? No. But it does mean that we can make informed choices as neighbors and as councilors about the future of our city. I'll end with 2 priorities that I have, or 3 priorities I should say, with a minute left here that I have, that I look forward to continue discussing. One, like I said, I support eliminating any raises for city leadership in any year moving forward that we have to deal with rifts. 2, in the past, there's a line item which includes, and is mentioned in the memo, work that falls under the UVM Health Network's umbrella, allocating over $100,000 in our regional programs budget. This is a decrease, but my main question with this and my concern, which I'm looking forward to more discussion, is that municipalities, and us included, should not subsidize the UVM Health Network. I recognize that this is good work that this money goes to, and I also recognize that the UVM Health Network has made nearly $2.5 billion in profit since 2018. Finally, and I will end with this because I'm out of time here, I do believe and I do support a moratorium on reclassifications in city government, and I know this is a discussion that folks are open to having, and I'm appreciative of that. We need time to reevaluate why and how often these take place, and I want us to maintain good-paying jobs for city employees, and our reclassifications have happened at a rate over the past few years that are unsustainable for the city budget. So I'm over time, and I will pass it back to you, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this item? All right. Well, we thank you, Mayor, and your team for tonight's update. We are looking forward to our meeting a week from today on the 23rd, where we will hopefully be voting on the budget. That takes us to the end of our deliberative agenda. And now to the next item on our agenda, which is committee reports. Is there any councilor with a committee report? Councilor Bergman.
Thank you. Just want to note that the Ordinance Committee will be meeting this Wednesday, June 18th at 4:30 p.m. downstairs in the Busher Conference Room, and also through Zoom. We have 2 zoning items that are up for substantive conversation, and we will then look at the rest of the business that we've got queued up and plan to get to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Bergman. Does any other councilor have a committee report? Councilor Grant.
Thank you. I want to thank the mayor for mentioning the Juneteenth celebration that will be happening this weekend on the 21st, 2 to 10 p.m. in downtown Burlington, Contoy's Auditorium, Lower Church Street, and City Hall Park. There's going to be activities for all ages. There'll be the community dinner, which is always well attended. And I'll also have a table out for people to engage with city councilors. That will be from 2 to 4 or 2 to 4:30. So if you're interested in being at the table, would love to hear from you. The website is btvraib.com/Juneteenth, and that will give you the schedule as well as the list of experiences that have been planned. And I really want to thank the REIB department for their hard work on this event, and just bringing a really excellent celebration and another reason for people to come to Burlington. We are not having a committee meeting this month. We would have normally had it this week, and this is because the REIB team is doing some extraordinary work to make sure that this event goes off without a hitch and is offering diverse experiences for other people. I would like to say something about the previous meeting. It was contentious, unfortunately.
Councilor Grant,
and
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm not allowed to talk to individual counselors because that breaks open meeting law, so I should be able to address the committee issue here.
I don't believe that that is in order with committee reports.
But it's a committee update.
All right. I mean, I would ask that you continue with the update. My hope is that this doesn't in any way impugn any other counselors.
Well, it does talk about what happened. And I don't know. I can't say that someone would be impugned. I mean, it's a difficult conversation, as issues of equity and fairness have been on our council, regretfully.
Okay. I mean, I think if you're going to use the committee report to call into question whether colleagues have acted in an equitable or fair manner, I don't think that's an appropriate use of
I'm not being allowed to finich right now, so I think that's a broad assumption.
I think, let's please continue. But I've voiced some caution with respect to this topic.
Okay, but mindful again that this is the only space that I can use because I'm not allowed to. It's a 3-person committee, And if I talk to one of the members individually, that's a violation of open meeting law. So my options are limited. My concern was there was a disagreement. My concern was that there was a motion to end the meeting. I find that very regretful, and I want to apologize to the REIB team because they were not allowed to discuss their work. I want to apologize to members of the community who were slated to speak about what they did with their empowerment grants so that we can know the work that's going on in the community and the results and how those empowerment grants worked. So those voices were silenced because we got to a difficult place. These conversations around equity, fairness, and in particular policing, because we have a history of this in our city, regretfully, we can't just shut them down. We do have to be willing to push through it and be willing to deal with and look at why certain things are being said. And I understand there were some things that were not well received, but there was a reason that I said them, and I feel that that reason was valid, and I would have been happy to talk about it more or to create a different meeting to talk about it, but to have shut down the conversation didn't just hurt me. I'm most regretful that these other voices were silenced. So my last comment would be
I mean,
that
you're indicating that your colleagues here, through a committee report, were somehow, hurtful to different folks in our community. And I again caution you, I don't think that's appropriate for a committee report.
what did happen was by shutting down the meeting, it is a fact that people who were scheduled to talk during that meeting were not allowed to. And this is also a concern of the community. So I am just saying, if in the future we get to a difficult place, we have to be willing to work through it, especially when discussing these type of issues in the city. Thank you.
All right. Is there any other counselor with a committee update? Counselor Litwin?
I guess I would say, I think people should be offered the opportunity to respond to that if they would like it, because that was way out of order.
Okay.
You don't have the floor. I'm not ceding it.
Point of order.
I'm not ceding the
Hold
floor.
on, Counselor Litwin. Please, just a moment. Counselor Bergman.
This is not a committee report.
Okay.
Neither was what we just heard.
I agree. Excuse me. Counselor Litwin, please. You are not a member of the committee that was being referred to there. If another member of the committee wanted to report back similarly with respect to whatever happened in the REIB committee, I would, I think the door is open to that at this point. They certainly don't have to. So, I appreciate your raising that, but I will not recognize that as a committee report. Is there any other counselor that has a committee report? Counselor Newbeezer.
Just to say that I appreciate Councilor Schachter and Litwin. I'm going to be missing our next CDNR meeting, so I'll do my best to review it and the information there. But had a prior commitment that I didn't mark. So I appreciate you all bearing with me, and members of the public and constituents bearing with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Newbeezer. Is there any other counselor with a committee report? Counselor McKnight.
Thank you for the opportunity to share a committee report. I will also share a report on what I observed in the REIB meeting, which was that the chair of the committee was unable to keep the meeting on the scheduled agenda because they were more interested in offering personal opinions than moving us along on the topics that were on
Point
the
of
agenda.
information. Now that is disparaging,
No,
fellow city councilor, and that is not what happened.
Counselor Grant, I'm sorry, but your committee report opened the door for this. And so I'm going to allow Councilor McKnight to report back on her observations and opinions from that meeting.
Point of order. There is a difference between reporting that a meeting was shut down without naming names, without blaming anybody, and saying that we got to work through it the next time, than actually naming and criticizing a member. So I think that...
Well, I mean, I will, excuse me, sorry, just a moment. There is a point of order here. Councilor McKnight, I will caution you in the same way that I cautioned Councilor Grant to please not impugn the individual motives of other individuals here. I do think, generally speaking, though, that the door has been opened by allowing the previous report for other councilors to report back on their own observations without individually attacking their colleagues. And so I believe that Councilor McKnight's comments have been in order. And Councilor McKnight, if you would like to continue, I will, but we'll ask you to please not individualize your comments.
Thank you. And I think the word individualizing is important. I also want to make it very clear that I'm not just sharing my own experience of the meeting and observations. I also am elevating the at least a dozen or more constituent and community member feedback that they felt silenced because of the exact reason that I shared, that we couldn't stick to the agenda in the meeting, and that they were very disturbed by the way the meeting was run. And I think it's really important that we honor and hear that feedback from the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Is there any other councilor with a committee report? Councilor Singh.
I would just like to comment. I was the one that adjourned that meeting. I felt it was not being productive, and we were completely off the topic at the time. I do feel for the people who came to testify and talk about the REIB grants and that we couldn't have that meeting. In the future, you know, I don't want to adjourn these meetings, but if we can't be productive, we're here to do the people's business, and I would hope that everybody would keep that in mind when we're sitting there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Singh. Councilor Schachter?
I would like to share that I'm, as Councilor Newbeeser spoke to, we have a full and I think important CDNR committee agenda on Wednesday, and I just wanted to share what's coming up, and I welcome anyone who's interested in coming to public comment or to participating in the meeting. There's 3 main agenda items. It's at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday downstairs in the Busher Room. We're going to be talking about the recent report that was presented to Council from the Aging Council, which I think will be a really rich discussion. We're going to be talking about the Housing Trust Fund. A highlight of my last couple weeks was knowing that we've put another $800,000, more than $800,000 towards affordable housing projects in this community. The Housing Trust Fund's doing really important work. So I welcome anyone who's interested in participating in that conversation. And then we'll also be looking at the syringe litter report from the Board of Health that was recently shared at Council. So I welcome anyone who's interested, both my colleagues here on the Council and the public, to consider joining us for that meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Is there any other councilor that has not been heard yet that has a committee report? All right. We are then going to move to City Council President Council updates. I do not have a council update. Seeing no other business then before the City Council, and absent objection, I will adjourn the City Council meeting at 10:28 p.m. Thank you.